Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old World Community Tournament. I'm Scientific. We're back once more, live again. This time, a very, very exciting treat. Mohawk Games' very own Fluffybunny, notoriously skilled at this game, facing newcomer Gel. You're gonna see how Gel's skills are in the game. I'm not really familiar with their multiplayer experience. But we certainly have their work cut out for them today because Fluffy is always a tough opponent. Let's get our friends on Discord here. If you're hopping in live, good to see you. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, appreciate you being here. Give us a like, subscribe, go on to the Old World official Mohawk YouTube channel and to find this playlist and keep up with all the tournament action. Gel chose first pick and went with Rome. We have a continent map, dual wide point symmetry. This is one of the map scripts that was available in the previous tournament, so there's a bit of a return to form for us in this session. Classic map, really cool map though. I'm really liking this. Iron in the capital, 2 wheat, marble, gems, fish. So very, very versatile capital city. I think this is arguably one of the better capitals you'd probably see opening up a match. Really nice to see. Fluffy picked an Assyrian tactician, and we growing with divination. There's about 7 sites on each side of the map with a fun island feature to deal with. This is going to be an interesting challenge for both players, as both players have to deal with the fact that this will inevitably bring coastal raids, but I think this is close enough that we could island hop here for the extra city site, which is really neat. And then the center of this map is an extremely interesting battlefront. We have, let me get rid of these chats. We have this mountain and lake and river complex all along the center of the map, which is really, really neat to see. Let's hop on over to Rome and see what we picked for Rome. We were Roman Zealot. I feel like this is going to be a classic matchup that we'll see in these tournament head-to-head games. The Zealot and Tactician are both very powerful opening archetypes. So I think they'll become popular, aggressive, and or defensive picks. It'll be really neat to see how often they pair up specifically against each other, the Tactician versus the Zealot. I'm inclined to think in a head-to-head conflict between those two archetypes, like literally, like we were talking a couple of warriors or slingers or whatever. I'm inclined to think the Zealot would win, but hard to say, really, hard to say. Welcome to the channel, Ignatz. Finally catching a game live. Awesome. Glad to see you here. Thanks for joining. Thanks for saying hello, as well as the other 5 people in the chat today. This is actually great timing. This is just around the typical Mohawk weekly stream, which they kind of stopped doing a couple weeks ago. So really, really excited to have this game filling that time slot. And on it, honored and privileged to be covering the game for Mohawk's ever amazing and friendly and awesome Fluffybunny. Those of you who hang out in the Discord, I'm sure, are familiar with Fluffy, and he's a great guy and super helpful. So it looks like we're moving forward with the settler. We've cleared this site, and we're holding it with a militia, which is interesting. Seems like we're going to delay settling that for a little bit. We opened champions with the Assyrians and landowners with the Romans. I suspect we will see an early granary. We kind of did wheat, then fish, and then we'll probably do wheat again. My personal preference when I have an administration start is I actually very consistently when I have wheat is I'll build a wheat first, and then I actually build the granary immediately second. And the reason for that is because the growth on both of these tiles is 2, right? So if you actually go farm first and then granary, the granary is also base 2 growth, but it's going to enhance the growth of the previous tile. So one farm and a granary actually gives you more growth than 2 wheat farms. Not as much food, mind you, but I actually very often, when I have an admin nation like the Hittites or the Assyrians, I'll plop my wheat farm first, and I will immediately go into a granary. Which blows some people's minds when I tell them that, or when they notice that in my games, because people immediately panic and be like, well, oh, but what about the food income? What about, the wood income? What about the wood upkeep? It's like, well, that's what money is for. I'll worry about that later. That's what money and shopping is for. I really think that's an interesting aspect about this game, and I think some people delay so many wood cost things like monasteries, granaries, or even archers because they think to themselves, well, I have to get my wood econ first. So, and players are often thinking, there are plenty of players who will even say that, forestry should come even earlier in the game. But I actually like the economics of that, because it feels like for the first half of the game, not maybe the first half, but certainly like the early part of the game, you kind of just have to go into debt when it comes to wood. And then you kind of come back and rebound it in the back half of the game. And I think that makes an interesting ecosystem in this game. Landowners, on the other hand, is... Rome doesn't start with admin, do they? No, they don't. We're going divination first for the Romans. Landowners is also a pretty good pick for the spot, especially because nice flex here with the iron. It'd be very easy to think putting your champion seat here, and that's exactly what Fluffy did, and I definitely don't think that's a bad call. I think Landowners is an interesting flex here as well, with all of these high-value rural terrains. We settled the state's seat on double marble. Classic, and really nice to see that from the Roman player as well. Pretty solid decision-making. Statesman is going to be almost a no-brainer for most nations that have access to it. And let's see the random trait, tough. Tough is the random trait on our players. Not too bad when you're trying to go out and clear the long term. Yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying, Cloris, and I am very pro high growth in capitals. And honestly, I think of all the technologies, administration is my favorite technology to start with. Which is interesting, because when we think about the high-value technologies at the start of the game, we think divination and stone cutting more than anything, and then maybe trapping for camps, orders, and slingers, right? However, I actually think administration is the best technology to start with, and the reason why I think that is because everybody is used to valuing divination or stone cutting enough such that it doesn't really disrupt your plan if you have to tech those. However, if you start with a nation like Persia, who has ironworking, trapping, and husbandry, well, then you need to make a choice between stone cutting and divination, which is difficult, and I feel like administration drops so low on your priority list that it gets delayed kind of for too long. So I actually would rather start with with administration, just so I don't need to worry about deviating to tech to it. So in a weird kind of like filling up the negative space of like not needing to worry about it, I actually think administration of all the technologies is the best technology to start with, in my personal opinion, because you don't have to pivot or deviate for it. You can keep on your normal tech path of worrying about divination or stone cutting or whatever else, and you don't have to go, and you don't have to wonder why your growth is stalling out or lower than usual, because I personally love granaries. Yes, and also the free worker bonus card that's attached to administration is pretty solid as well. So our players have met each other. They are now aware that both players are working with a tactician and a zealot, respectively. And I really like seeing the eyes from Fluffy here immediately on this unit. We've seen Alcors talk about this a little bit, how which is kind of funny because he's actually not the best scouter. That's one of his weaknesses, but he says how if you can get eyes on your opponent's starting unit or their general military, and then try to do your best to follow that unit around with your scout, that'll keep you really, really safe and kind of get you a sense of your opponent's pacing as well as the threat they may pose to you. On this side of the map, however, we see what I think is often very common. And of course, the Roman scout could still move this, his position. But sometimes what I see players do is they find the border, they find a city, and then they park right outside it and just keep watch. However, even in this situation, I'm hoping that Gel will try to find the military. If he comes up here and plops up on this hill, he'll spot where the tactician is, and that can be pretty important early on. He can see this camp, so he does know the tactician is not clearing down here, so you can always intuit, which is another nice thing about the mirror map dynamic. If you don't see your opponent's military unit clearing this site, and you are aware, because of your side of the map, that this site exists, which technically we are not yet, you can intuit that player military is very likely in that position, or in the case of a slinger, maybe it's hiding in the woods somewhere, which is always annoying. The site count, I believe, is 14. Yes, we have the capital, a free site, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, 14. Really, really cool terrain in the center of the map. I think this is going to make for a very interesting battlefield. Yet another map we will see in this tournament. Especially seems to be consistent on these continent-style maps. Whether it's the archipelago one, the wetlands one, or continent itself, where tile buying could become very defining in the center of the map. This is a vast lake complex. There's 2 tiny lakes, 2 larger lakes. Well, there's actually 4 tiny lakes, and then rivers spread throughout. So if you can tile buy and consume a bunch of these lakes into your border before your opponent can, you would completely... I mean, this could almost become impenetrable, the amount of mobility that would provide for a defending army. It's kind of insane when you think about it. Oh, we have a first engagement here. The tactician has spotted the Roman scout out in the open, so there's a bit of an oops from Gel, and Fluffybunny has no issue showing his fangs early and denying that vision. This, honestly, if you have the opportunity to kill your opponent's scout early, certainly take advantage of it. Really nice demonstration of the fact that it's pretty solid to just swap to tight turns early on these closer maps, because I personally don't mind when players take pot shots and attempt to kill scouts during simultaneous turns, but some players do, and I think this just resolves that conflict altogether. So the Roman scout will be going down, which is always unfortunate because you always need scouts in this game. So that's in addition to losing vision in this moment and for the time being. Ooh, and we get a crit too, so we're not even going to have to... There was only going to be 1 damage left on that unit if we didn't get the crit, so we saved ourselves an order there. And a turn. But scouting is so valuable that in addition to denying vision now, you're basically going to force your opponent into putting 4 to 5 turns of build queue at some point in the game, whether soon or later, into building another scout. So that's a real big win if you can take out your opponent's scout early. So that's first blood on turn 12. Assyria taking out a scout. Hello, Alcaris. Welcome to the chat. Hello, Hazard. Welcome to the chat. Welcome, welcome. Glad everybody's popping in to say hello. Yes, very exciting times indeed to see Fluffy play. Last season, he had abysmal luck. The old world gods were not favoring his tournament play whatsoever. He only played about 2 games, I believe, and in both games, he just had awful, awful luck. No, he played 3 games, actually. So he had 1 really, really good game, and then the other 2 games against his... arguably his more challenging opponents of, I believe, the 3 or 4 that he faced. He just got dealt very, very shitty hands. Well, maybe... How many games did he play last season? Did he play 4 now? I keep thinking of new opponents. He played Ninja, Oro, Sabretooth, and then 1 more person. So it was 4 games, but 2 of them went... The 2 losses he faced were just really bad luck. He played Becht, yes, Oro, Ninja, and he also played Sabretooth. So it was 4. Thanks, Alcaris, yes. But yeah, so here's hoping the gods show him a bit more favor this season. Of course, luck will always play a role in these games. It's just something, we can tweak that, in some cases with event adjustments or whatever else. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's just something to become comfortable with over time. That luck will play a role in these games, however big or small. And hopefully the gods will show a little bit more kindness to Fluffy this tournament, because I think his loss against Ninja last season was arguably the worst game of the season in terms of one player getting dealt a particularly shitty hand. Thankfully, I think as often as luck can swing a match in certain moments, I really don't think, from my personal perspective, we've seen many matches where it was as bad as people probably make it out to be, at least in my opinion, right? But that match in particular was pretty bad. It seemed like every possible thing that could have gone wrong for Fluffy in that Ninja game just went wrong. And sorry, reminiscing over the past here, but very, very exciting to see him playing. Nice to see the Assyria pick. I think the Assyria is a good pick here. Very strong pick, I think. I'll be curious to see how often Assyria gets picked, because I think they're a reliable pick, and I think that crit chance makes them very difficult to deal with, because you have a nation that has Sentinel, which is very difficult to attack, and then as the attacker, you can't really account for crits. You also can't really account for crits if you're Assyria. Like, you can't really rely on them because, we have the show crit turned off, which in my opinion, is totally appropriate for this setting. But more importantly, if you are the opponent of Assyria, it makes it really, really difficult to assess your capabilities, because you can go into a battle where it looks like you have an advantage, and then your opponent can just get one solid lucky round of a bunch of crits, and suddenly you lose all the chariots that you brought in the fight when you or like all of your spears die, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the thing that you're relying on, suddenly you're like doing the combat math, being like, okay, he can only kill 2 units next turn. And then next turn comes and he doesn't kill 2 units, he kills 4 units because he got like 6 crits. And that is just so hard to plan against. Oh, and did we pause for a moment accidentally? Whoops. Well, that's fine. We might have forgotten to pause. Oh! Did we? Yes! Love to see it. How nice to find a flaw. So if we look at the champion seat over in Rome's, the landowner seat, there is a iron mine here, and it appears as if our good friend Fluffybunny has bulldozed his iron mine. So love to see it, and this is just a really fun moment. Yeah, Gel might actually be experiencing no undo for the first time. You're definitely going to make mistakes. And, but no, this is really fun because we can just marvel at the fact that, even the best of us, even the best players are going to mess up. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to make misclicks. We're all going to run out of time. I think, as far as the quote-unquote more experienced players go, I think I probably struggled with the timer the most. And Klaus Koala is another one. Klaus Koala prefers a slow timer as opposed to, a medium timer. So not all of us are as crazy efficient as you might think. Chat is picking up a bit, so a little bit hard for me to keep up. I apologize. There's 15 of you in here now, and quite a bit of you chatting, so I will try to catch up. Yeah, it looks like we're doing a triple settle. All 3 of these are settled. And if anyone can get away with this, I think it's Assyria, especially the Syrian tactician, because tacticians have crit chance anyway. because you have that extra focus and the ability to get even more focus. In fact, this is one of my favorite combinations right here. I did a whole video on this. This was a single player video, but I have a whole video on my YouTube where I play a game in single player that revolves around the Assyrian tactician with Besieger. So we were lucky enough to get Besieger on this unit. We start champs, so that's another 25%. So this unit right here, this tactician unit, has plus 50% strength attacking into these tribal sites, and about nearly a 20% chance to crit. So I'm pretty sure I don't have a city site to do the math on anymore, but I'm pretty sure in the right circumstance, this tactician could potentially one-shot a city site, and that's pretty amazing, especially with the militia in tow. So that's one of the nice things about Assyria. They can clear insanely fast, which is really nice. Romans, on the other hand, are actually, speaking of clogging up build queues, we're decided to get our other scout early. I don't really hate that. Probably wouldn't have chose this area because we have such high growth in the capital. I probably just would have threaded the scout in the landowner seat early. And let's look at governors for the landowner seat. We have a judge and a builder that could be in here that we haven't placed in yet. Really, always check your landowners and artisan cities, especially if you're doing the capitals or, you know, the seat for their governors, because those two families very often can have access to builders, which can really speed up your early game tempo, which is quite nice. But that's something to think about as well if you're running landowners or artisans regularly. Let me catch up with chat here for a moment. Watching the capital is a poor play early with a scout. Yeah, I agree. I agree with Alcaris' general assessment, and I'm sure it's not just his assessment, but try to find the enemy army if you can and do your best to kind of shadow the enemy army and see where they're going. It'll give you some insight as to what they're doing and what they're thinking, what you're thinking about, and how much threat you're under. Still clearing fine with the Romans. In fact, both players, the Assyrians are actually already completely cleared their side of the map, which is always scary to deal with. And as noted, there's 2 settlers coming out in 2 turns, another settler coming out. We actually did do clerics with Assyria, which is interesting. Like to see it. We'll see if he tries to make a play for Zoroastrianism. And yeah, really smooth, classic, kind of like efficient opening here from the bunny, which is what makes the bulldozing of the iron all more satisfying, because if you're up against a really good player, it's nice to have a moment where you know that, hey, you know what, they can mess up too. So just the best advice I have for people in this tournament, who, if they go up against people who develop like a reputation for themselves, I suppose. So like Klaus Koala will be at 1 because he was last season's champion. Fluffybunny is notorious good. I think people probably assume I'm better than I am because I'm doing all of this casting and demonstrating how much I know about the game and all this stuff. Just do your best to not think about that and just play your own game. Don't worry about the fact that you're going up against Fluffy or Klaus or Alcaris or whomever, and just play your game, you know? Read your map, make your decisions, and focus on what you're doing. Don't play your opponent, because sometimes that can backfire. And the best example I have of this is the first time Alcaris ever beat me. Alcaris beat me the first time by rushing me. You know, in the handful of matches that we've played together, his first victory against me was a rush. And he got away with it very easily because I played a builder opener, and I decided, uncharacteristically for myself, to play very greedy. And the reason why I made that decision, because in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I'm playing Alcaris, so we're going to be playing this game for like a million years. And he showed up on my doorstep on turn like 45 or 50 with a bunch of onagers and Carthaginian elephants, and I collapsed instantly because I played the player and not the game. So that's some advice that I would have for people as well in this tournament. You can kind of adjust or adapt to what you think the player's going to do from a meta perspective, but really just focus on trying to play the best game you yourself can play. Boldus is saying Tactician on Assyria is the perfect counter for Zealot Rome, he thinks. So a tough game for Gel. Alcaris, Gel chose to pick first. And we have Boldus taking credit for the Zealot Rome opening. Classic. Love to see it. Hi, Scion. Hi, chat. Oh, no, sorry. Hi, Blunt Magic. I'm Scion. You're Blunt Magic. Hi, Blunt Magic. Assyrian Builder is fun, too. Yeah, Assyrian is just a great nation. I really think... I'm surprised we don't see more Assyria. That crit and also that orders. People... I think that getting the order on kill... The 2 orders on kill is actually really efficient in the order game. Because... In the early game. Because think of it... Like, every barbarian you kill... Compared to your opponent... Even just math it out like this, is 2 extra moves that you could make on your scout that your opponent can't make. So if we're talking about the fact that we start with a builder, 1 military unit or 2, and a scout, right? Every barbarian you kill in those first 10 to 20 turns is 2 extra moves that you can move on your scout. So that's not nothing, you know, that's a harvest to help you get your cognomens up. That's good scouting. That's good legitimacy from scouting. It's moving a settler to get that extra spot and, you know, settle this turn rather than next turn. So it really does add up, I think. And it's just harder to conceptualize the Assyrian bonuses because they're very like, they only work in this one moment, you know. You know, so they don't, the orders only work on kill. And then when you're in a fight in the end game, it becomes nasty because between crits and orders on kill, it becomes, as I was saying earlier, very, very, very difficult to plan around the power of an Assyrian army that's fully operational, because I genuinely think you need probably about 20% more strength than you think you need to fight an Assyrian army and succeed. Because if you bring the normal amount of military that you think you would need in the same situation, Assyria is probably going to win just because of their order economy and the fact that they'll probably crit a bunch in a prolonged conflict. Rome did have their scout killed. Syrian could go Axemen and overwhelm Rome before they have counter. Nice. Really like the theory crafting there from Boldus, conceptualizing a counter to his Roman zealot strategy. Already have 2 shrines up in the capital, and we're going for acolytes now. Let's do a status of acolytes in the Roman Empire. No acolytes coming up for the Romans. We did get divination first. In fact, might as well take this opportunity to make an interesting point. I'm always talking about the benefits of landowners, right? So this works probably best with Kush in particular, but I'm going to point it out in this situation anyway. Landowners, we always talk about how artisans nation can have the easiest time founding Zoroastrianism, but landowners are actually pretty good at it too because they automatically have the citizens. So wherever you put the landowner seat, if you put 2 shrines in there, you're automatically going to have the ability to, you could literally just go right into acolyte. Whereas in other situations, you have to kind of juggle different build queues or juggle the population considerations. And why I mention Kush in particular is because Kush starts with divination. So you could be Kush, open landowners, build 2 shrines, and then immediately go into 2 acolytes, you know, after building a settler or 2. And that is going to be some pretty solidly quick tempo for getting Zoroastrianism out compared to, you know, an artisan's nation, which I mean, Kush is also an artisan's nation, so you could do both with them. But I'm not saying it's necessarily faster than artisans, but it's another way to do it. I think this map terrain is also open enough for Assyria to do a classic archer gambit. Plenty of wood too, plenty of wood for chopping as well. He doesn't need forestry. He could just burn all of these woods down, and the map seems small enough and open enough in the center for the Assyrians to really flex an archer rush here. And that's one of my personal favorite strategies, so it'd be nice to see somebody actually do that. Let's see, in fact, let's take a peek at Rome's tech tree so we see what we have marked, if anything. Nothing indicated for the Romans. Let's hop on over back to Fluffy and see what we have here. We have Fluffybunny actually grabbing steel is marked. So we're looking at navigation and steel. So we will see early axes Probably because, I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't take credit for this, but I'm always shit-talking axes, and Fluffy always thinks I'm ridiculous. So when I do it, so maybe he wants to show me a thing or two about axes. But trust me, I do know the axe is good. I'm just not used to flexing their strength myself, because in single player, they're just not really that important. Promote units 5 times. I love having this promotion when I have a champ nation, because it basically is simple as build 5 units and you're basically going to get an ambition. Go Axemen versus Rome. Why are we saying Axemen versus Rome? Their unique unit, if they get to it, will destroy Axes. That's an honest question. Like, if you're early enough, it's fine, sure, and I think Fluffy could be early enough, but if it comes to like a mid-game fight with 4 laws and unique units, the Hestastus is going to shred an axe. But you do get them faster with Assyria, so that's a good point. I mean, in fairness, the Hestastus will shred a spear also. That's why I like the idea of going archers. And also, if you do jump up to comp bow with Assyria, you'll get the ballista, which could theoretically solve a Hestastus problem. So, of course, Hestastus have their Testudo ability, but that's a little bit trickier to use. Well, of course you get axes before 4-law timing. But that doesn't necessarily mean you'll win a fight before then. You can. Doesn't look like we're gearing up for hyper-aggression on the Assyrian side of things just yet, though. Which is fine. Still early days. I'm going to say that Zoro tempo is going to go to the Assyrians. Depends on if we opt for an Acolyte in Rome now. But if we do, there could be a window if Fluffy... Actually, there could be a window in general, because this actually goes back to what I'm talking about. We're going to finish this Acolyte in 2 turns, but our next citizen for the second Acolyte in this city is not going to come out until 4 turns. So that's going to be an extra 2-turn delay on their second Acolyte, whereas the landowners, in theory, could start working on an Acolyte now, could start working on a Shrine now, which they're working on, and in the time that it takes this Acolyte to finish, this Shrine will be finished. So that's a very similar time frame for both players. In 4 turns, the Romans would be working on their second Acolyte, and in 4 turns, the Assyrians could be working on their second Acolyte. So it could be very, very close race to Zoroastrianism. Yes, and we're seeing an Acolyte in Rome. Amazing. Amazing. So right now, if both players build the second Acolyte at the moment they can, and the civic and like the build time is the same, they will hit that timing the same. Oh, we're swapping to the settler. So that's going to give that tempo back to Fluffy. But that kind of goes to what I was talking about. It really, landowners could help you win that race solely from population alone. So that's something to think about. Axes, steel are in the tech hand, and we are grabbing it for Assyria. Love to see it. Hopefully we can get some early mines. We're already building a mine. Really big bummer. If we're going to do an axe strategy, it's a really big bummer that we deleted that iron mine. But, you know, nice to give Gel a bone in terms of, you know, potentially his first multiplayer game. I don't know if it's his first multiplayer game, but I don't know. Going up against Fluffy always sucks. You got to keep the energy high. I get excited about everything. I like anything. Scout put a note here. Sorry, Fluffy put a note here, and it says scout hunting season. He's aware that there is a Roman scout in this city, and he's mostly aware in this forest, and he's probably most aware of this because I'm assuming that his tactician went invisible in the woods and then got booped out. So that's a really, if you have the astute awareness to pay attention to where your invisible units are, great way to keep track of where your opponents could be, because if this slinger were in these woods and this scout stepped on this tile, it would bump this slinger into this woods. So if you're astute enough to catch that you've been bumped out of the woods, and this makes it very easy because if we were standing in this forest and now we're standing out in the open, we know that something bumped us out of the woods. But when you're in deeper forest, it's harder to tell because you're always bumped to the nearest wood tile unless there's no other tile for you to land on. But yeah, so he is aware that there's a scout walking around, and he probably saw the scout come into this forest as well. Very exciting. Be very, very quiet. We're hunting Romans. Forestry is actually up in the hand for the Romans. Could be interesting to see them grab that here. I do know that there's a handful of groves on the map. There's 1, 2. This island is a nice prize for land consolidation. 3 groves out here. That brings the total to 5, I believe. 6. Looks like 6 sides. 7 if you can reach out this far. And 6 is usually my low minimum for thinking that land consolidation could be worth it. Although these are pretty spread out, and this island could be a chore to take. So I would not necessarily make that assessment on this map specifically. I'm just saying 6 is generally the number I keep an eye out for. If I see 6 groves that are easily accessible, I might be inclined to jump up to land consolidation quickly and use that as my primary science booster for the first half of the game. And this just goes to show how the science momentum in this game ramps up over time, because when we selected steel, it said steel would be finished in 11 turns, and it's now it's actually going to be finished in 9 turns. And in fact, for the eagle-eyed viewers among you, as I was saying that sentence, the science bar within steel actually ticked up a little bit more. And actually it just went down to 8 turns, right? So this is what I was talking about sometimes about deep B-lines. People think, well, why would I pick architecture, I don't know, on Greece or whatever, right? If it's going to take 20 turns, when it's turn 11, right? And architecture is going to take 20 turns. Especially at the beginning part of the game, a 20-turn, 15-turn, 12-turn technology is never going to take that much time, because you're going to get events and then also gradual science increases as you finish acolytes and stuff. That's going to change your tech timing. So a 20-turn beeline is often more likely going to be finished in about maybe 15 or 14 turns, right? And that's one of the things. And then when you think about events, right? If you're really trying to beeline a high-value tech, it's better to keep a direct path, because that means anytime you get an event that gives you 60 science or 80 science or 100 science, whatever it is, it's going directly to that path rather than to your deviations, which you're using to try and cycle to the path. Great point by Frederick. Steele's going to also put a free Byreme in the hand for the Assyrians, which will make clearing this site super easy. Won't need to worry about tile buying or border boosting, and he could actually get himself this nice grove site and lush tile. And also it will cut off the raids, right? Once he clears this, he'll have a completely safe and secure side of the map, and I would not be surprised if there's a delay on clearing the Vandal location, that the Romans may deal with raids for a little bit. Currently we have 6 cities to 4, so the Assyrians are fully expanded on the mainland now, and the Romans are playing a little bit of catch-up. We have 1 settler coming out in 3 turns, and that's it. So we'll in approximately 4 if we go here, 4, 5 if we go here, 7-ish if we go here, we'll have a 5th city. I'm not seeing any other landowner pop-ups, which for me is a bit unfortunate, not because I love landowners so much, just because if you're bringing them in, they're really great to get down early, because they can actually help you expand very quickly because of their extra growth. So I do understand the states here, I do understand bringing the champions here, but I think maybe I would have, instead of settling out here, I think I would have settled down here, and with my 4th city being landowners, that way we could have done settler here and settler here. And then what would we have? We would have the last 2 remaining settlers for the site, and would be fully expanded. Instead, we did a second champion location, and we're building a worker in both spots, which not necessarily bad, but for me, one of the things I really like about leveraging landowners early is their ability to help you expand quickly with their extra growth. So that's something to think about for Gel and anybody watching who either likes landowners or is trying to conceptualize how best to use them. I I always believe that they're a little bit of an underrated family. I like them a lot. So we have 2 clerics, 2 champions, 2 hunters for the Romans. For the Assyrians, which is a really great ratio, and I would not be surprised if we make it to this island if we made this a 3rd clerics family, since it looks like we will very likely get Zoroastrianism. However, I do want to point out, going back to the race for Zoroastrianism, right? We finished our acolyte, we slotted in a warrior, and even though we're going to get this growth next turn, we will finish our warrior, so that will delay us 1 more turn. So going back to the Roman side of the map again, if this player did choose to build this acolyte and then immediately choose another acolyte, he would have actually beaten Fluffy to Zoro. I don't believe that's going to happen at this point, but it's just a very interesting way in which it's like, you're never really sure where your opponent is in that race and how quickly, because some people can do that in 14 turns. Some people can get Zoro in 14 turns or 15 turns. Other people try to do it fast, but they hit normally around 20 turns. And sometimes, I mean, we're probably going to have like something like a turn, what is this, 28-ish Zoroastrianism. So entirely possible for Fluffy to be tossing Zoroastrianism to their opponent with a mid to late 20 timing on his end. Economy in Assyria is pretty solid. Let's take a look at politics early on. Champions are super happy. Always nice to see it, because we married into the champions. Marrying into a family is a great way to pick a target family that you want to like you. If you're really lucky, you'll get to marry the oligarch. But that normally requires taking the gamble on a turn 1 marriage, which is not always worth it. Because normally the oligarch gets married on their own within the first 2 or 3 turns. But that's always a fun strategy in some situations, especially if it's a patron's courtier. Because the courtier has like a 50% chance of becoming the oligarch. So if you marry the courtier directly yourself at the start of the game, if you're available, if the genders match, you could give yourself basically a 50% chance to be married directly into the head of the family that you founded. So that's a little neat trick for the patron's family. You can run the same gamble with any family, but you won't always have the oligarch as an option to marry. So sometimes they will just generate an entirely brand new character that didn't exist for you to marry. It's not always guaranteed that, even if the oligarch is single, it's not always guaranteed that they will be one of the suitors for you. But if you're me and you don't mind taking a gamble, it can be really fun, and if it works, it will pay off rather nicely. All right, so the Romans have fully cleared their side of the map, which is nice. 1 settler coming out next turn. Another settler coming out in 6th turn. They will be fully expanded. So a little bit more tempo on the Assyrian side of things. And now we're seeing the military come online. We have a warrior coming out of the capital and 2 slingers coming out in the hunters' locations, which is quite nice. And Rome's scout is doing its scouting and staying safe in these forests. He hopefully has learned that lesson, not to leave a scout out in the open, because players will punish. Over 20 of you in the chat now. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm really glad that you're enjoying the tournament, and I appreciate the support of my casts. It does mean a lot. I'm having a lot of fun. It's been great. And we are going to the Acolyte now. So Zoro will, let's take one quick check. Yeah, Zoro will definitely go to Assyria. Pretty much very, very slim chance that that could get disrupted at this point for any reason. Nice to see the stone cutter here. I think that's going to be super useful. We're building barracks, we're building a stone cutter. This is a champion's family, but I think this is going to be super useful, forgive me, for if and when we want to bring officers online. And of course, generally useful for our passive civic and stone income, because while these 2 cities end up spamming military units later on, they will still have good yields pumping into the game. In fact, Alcaris, specifically, since I know you're watching, you should take a little bit of notes here because this really is a fantastic capital. There was 2 wheat, 1 fish, a marble, there was an iron, there was a source of gems, there was a grove. So really, you could do anything you want with this capital. I think any family would fit well in this location. Sages, landowners, whatever. Maybe not hunters. Maybe hunters would be the one that kind of doesn't really sing so much in this location, but traders would even work here. And we do have a champion's capital, likely because there was iron in the city, but Fluffybunny deleted his iron, so now that doesn't matter. But you can still see, as we've talked about privately, but this applies to everybody who struggles for the conceptualization of a military capital or military seat in your capital. You can see that Fluffy's still kind of playing this like any other city. He built 2 settlers from the city, I believe. Now he's building his 2 acolytes. He's just built a warrior, which is fine. So you don't need to treat a champion seat much different than a traditional capital early on, and where I think will pay out later on. You do obviously lose that build time of units by not having this be a secondary city, because of course a very great strategy for champions is to just kind of settle the seat and then have it build units indefinitely forever and barely develop it apart from barracks and stuff. However, I think where this will become valuable is later on in the game when we hit 4 law or 7 law timing, which is the easiest, arguably, to do in the capital. Then this thing's going to be cranking out rams and or siege towers super easily, which is going to be nice. All right, back to the Romans. We are finally shifting to acolytes in the capital. Still pretty solid. Going to get us more science. Going to get us more culture. Not really a bad grab. But you know what? Wow, good governors. We can do a robust cultivator. Lots of builders. So again, always check your landowner. This is another great thing about landowners. Builders are so common that if you settle a bunch of landowner city, like down here, we can toss a builder into the city. She's robust. We'll get an order for doing it, which is totally worth the 100 civics, and then we'll increase our order efficiency for developing the city. So for the Romans, I suspect actually 2 landowners will work. So this site right here is either going to be landowners or statesmen. And we'll probably see the third landowner's city on the island. Getting military drill now for the Romans. Ooh. And we get myth the warrior or turn ourselves into a judge. I really like this event. Sometimes it's nice to turn yourself into a judge, especially if you did something cheeky like an orator start. I've done this before. You start as an orator, you get luck out with one of the events that lets you change your archetype, and well, hey, you already hired your tribal units, so I would absolutely swap from an orator to a judge in this situation. That's something to think about too for some of the less popular or more niche opening archetypes. There's at least 3 or 4 events that have a decent amount of consistency of firing for the player that could allow you the opportunity to change your archetype. The ones that I'm thinking about in particular, there's one that I think transforms you into a zealot. That one transforms you into a judge, and I believe there's a schemer one. Those are the 3 that I can think of for you to swap around. Oh, and there's one, I know there's one where you can change into a diplomat, but people probably won't be in a rush to change into a diplomat. But yeah, I've done that before. I've started as an orator and then swapped into a judge if that event pops up in the first 30 some odd turns, which can be pretty neat because you kind of get the best of both worlds. Hire a bunch of tribal units and then start holding court. Turn 26 here, let's do a cap on some stats already. We haven't taken a stat check yet. Military score favors the Romans, which actually makes sense, but Fluffy's going to equalize shortly because he's currently building 2 slingers. Let's look at overall stats. National wealth is relatively even between both players. We'll keep an eye on the wonders, and I'll do a wonder check after this stack check. Population in favor of Fluff. Specialist slight favor for Rome, but that's going to equal out in a moment. Fluffy has already built 4 workers to Rome's 2. So an advantage there, and Rome has about 3 workers to Fluffy is 1, which that's soon going to equalize because, again, 2 slingers are coming out momentarily. 1 law in Rome, 5 technologies on Fluffy's side, which does make sense. He was a tactician versus a zealot, so a little bit of a uptick in science there. 14 improvements in Fluffy's territory versus 10. So, we're mostly just building up our empire in this situation. Orders is something I'm keen to check out. 17 to 15, so slight advantage for Fluffy, but not too much extra invested in turns so far. And science, currently there is about a 200 science tech lead in the tree invested so far. 34 science to 24 in favor of Assyria. So that's going to be something that Gel is want to make sure he can catch up on, because Fluffy is the type of player who's strong enough that if he gets a science lead, he can pretty much keep the science lead indefinitely, unless you can either harass, disrupt him, get him into a fight, or, just keep up with him on your own. Graphs. Yes, indeed. And if anybody ever wants to see a particular graph, feel free to ask. I try to check, every 20-ish turns or so I'm not always looking at the graphs, but anybody who ever pops in on a stream and wants to see the power graph or whatever, just ask and I'll show you. I am going to step away briefly real quick just to refill my cup of water. Politics in Rome looking pretty good. Landowners are very happy. It seems like we have a good relationship with the ruler, endeared to us, so that's nice. Anyway, yeah, I'll be right back. All right, and we're back. And thanks again for so many people being in the chat. Hello, everyone. And I really love the energy around this tournament. I appreciate all the casters hopping in and volunteering. And just all the support and community that has been popping up around this game. I love seeing tons of people, even people I've never even seen on Discord. We have a couple new people popping up, and people are asking for practice matches, which is really cool. It makes, in some sense, it makes all the effort that we put in feel that much more worth it, because, I mean, we'd still do this anyway, right? Me, Alcaris, whomever else, because we like playing the game. But the fact that it's actually reaching more people than we would expect is, I don't know, very, very, very cool. So, huge shout out to all of you for being here, keeping up with the tournament. Try not to burn yourself with all the content. There's going to be way more content coming out than any of us could likely reasonably consume. And sometimes the action is going to die down because a new round won't begin in this Swiss portion until all matches in a round have been finished. So we had a very active opening week of the tournament. We have 31 games that we need to finish, and 20 or 21 are already finished. 26 are being played, thereabouts, and only about 4 more games need to be scheduled or pending. So in about 1 more week or so, we could be waiting on just a couple of games to finish up, which means that there is plenty of time to go back and watch streams or videos on YouTube and catch up on the games you missed. And don't feel like you need to be everywhere at once and burn yourself on all the old world content. Burn yourself out. But, of course, as an old world addict like myself, feel free to go nuts and just consume as much as you want, because, I don't know, I'm right where I want to be. Military drill in 4 turns for the Romans. Nice. One thing I think about, too, sometimes when I think about nation pairings and the starting tech tech layouts is a question of like how quickly do you think you need to equalize the tech layout with your opponent. So Assyria and Uezi both start with military drill, and military drill is arguably one of the more important technologies you could get in the first half of the game. So this is an example where it's like, I think if you can get military drill quickly to equalize that advantage with the other nation, it's probably worth it. Same thing with the husbandry nations. Often when a husband nation is going to be picked, it's usually because this beginning area kind of calls out to the husbandry nations. So that creates a really interesting conundrum if you decide to choose to not pick a husbandry nation of like, well, how quickly and or when are you gonna get those pastures online, because you know the Hittites or the Persians that you're up against already have those pastures. Really unlucky hand here for Fluffy. He wants husbandry. Training boost is going to get discarded because he's going for the free Byreme. The free Byreme is definitely the correct grab, but it's always a bummer to toss the training boost because I think that's a very worthwhile bonus card. Yes, and Blunt Magic is saying Fluffy is ahead because his first cues were settlers and it didn't affect his clear time. That's one of the advantages of opening champions, by the way, and also one of the advantages of tacticians, zealots, or in the case of Assyria, having the crit chance. Because the more that you can clear with as minimal units as possible, the more that you can spend time on building settlers. Of course, that does leave you open later on for potential early aggression, but we can see the Assyrians are resolving that issue because we've already built one slinger here, we have another slinger here, and then also Sentinel is really hard to attack into. And Assyria in general is really hard to attack into because you just can't account for those crits. We're getting our barracks online. I really like to see this. We're also sending our barracks along the coastlines to try and expand borders a little bit. Also up here, Fluffy is using this to expand borders and also kind of wrap around coastlines. So that's something interesting to see here. Another barracks along the coast here. Going to grab those pearls. And he's kind of doing his best to get his coastline expanded. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see the barracks in this city go right here. And so the other one can go right here. And that should pop up this coast. And those are the little micro decisions that you can make. And we're doing something similar down here. We're doing a barracks, and I would not be surprised if the garrison goes right in this location, which will expand this out. And it also give you the ability to start urban highwaying down here. Because the more coastal expansion that you can create on these maps that revolve around coastal transport, without needing to tile buy, is super helpful. Of course, if you have landowners, I'm just going to gas up landowners for the entire tournament, so I apologize ahead of time. But this family can already tile buy without needing colonies, so they could completely connect this coast. And a neat trick that I like to do if I'm being really cheeky is, let's say I settle this landowner's in the capital and then this landowner's right here, is I will actually swap borders from this city back to the capital, because you take no opinion hit if the city is of the same family type, and then I would continue the landowner's capital tile buying along the coast to get my full connection up. Is that expensive? Yes. Is it worth it? I don't know. Is it awesome? Absolutely, it is awesome. I love it. It's a really neat trick. That's going to go on my list of stupid tricks that you can do in this game, and I really should get started on that, because the stupid tricks are fun and amazing, but I don't never really know if the stupid tricks are actually worth it, but they're super cool. Hello, gambler. Welcome to the chat. And did we already found? Yeah, and we founded Zoroastrianism last turn, so both the clerics are done. Yeah, they're super flexible. I think that's why I do like them. The reason why I gas them up so much is that they are detached from the whole, oh, I need iron, or oh, I need precious, or oh, I need coastal resources, or oh, I need camps. Landowners can just do anything and go anywhere. And I think that's why I like them. They're super flexible. Kind of like a jack of all trades type of thing. And what are we doing? States. Nice. And I like the choice of states here simply because we used a statesman settler to settle this. So for those of you who are not yet familiar, if you settle a city with the same family type of the city that you're settling, you get an extra citizen. So if we had settled this with a settler from the capital, we'd only have one citizen because it would be a landowner settler. But since we used a statesman settler from the statesman seat, we got an extra citizen. And in fact, we did this perfectly with both families. The capital settler settled landowners here, getting us an extra citizen, and the statesman settler settled here, getting us yet another extra citizen. So I like that little efficiency there from Gel. Really nice intentionality there around increasing his population, because not needing to worry about that growth. Like, this allows us to build a worker immediately, and we're building another worker immediately, and yet once we're ready to start putting down specialists, we're already going to have 2 citizens in the city, which is quite nice. And for those of you who also don't know this, every citizen is 0.1 order. So if you settle yourself efficiently like this, you actually very, very marginally tick up your order economy, which is quite nice. Yep, no real priority for getting the gem mine. The one thing I like, I tend to do this too sometimes, and the thing to think about this, he is definitely focused on iron mining for axes, though, that's for sure. But one thing that's really nice about these gold income resources is that if he's going to mine all around this, right? And once he does put the gem mine on this tile, it's actually going to pay for all of the adjacent mines through adjacency. Which is really, really cool, and I think it's an underrated aspect of gems, gold, and silver, is that all mines adjacent to the tile, and even salt, all mines adjacent to the tile feed their adjacency bonus to the resource itself, so like the gold. And it's just enough in all cases, even the 20% gold, the 20 gold from a salt or gem mine, is just enough to negate the base upkeep costs of the mine that you're building. So that's really cool. And one of the reasons why, if I have gold like this, I like to put all of the mines around the gold and then mine the gold. So I think I tend to start with the income resource personally. So we didn't see that in this situation. But yeah, I tend to plop down a gold mine and then just mine all around it, because then, effectively speaking, all of the mines around this gold mine are completely free. Resource income for no maintenance. Really, really cool. Blunt Magic says he tends to skip the Assyrian unique units and so feels a bit validated. I think they will come into play here. I mean, it's early days, and if we do hit strong culture, the bonus card will certainly come in handy. Having a bunch of axes with a couple rams by their side is certainly going to be... Whoa! The Romans are making an aggressive move here. Bold move coming out from the Romans. Completely missed it. Let's see if they're similar, and Gel is already naive, so maybe he's thinking, oh man, Fluffy's going to do Fluffy things and outpace me dramatically. He already also knows that Fluffy had more cities, so maybe he's trying to just take a bold early risk and say, can I throw him off his guard? Fluffy can't see the 2 warriors, and certainly a risky play against Assyrian Sentinel Slingers, as discussed already. But, I mean, I appreciate the boldness. We have seen games in last tournament, and I'm sure probably in this tournament. It's all kind of blending together for me at this point, because I kind of go from one game to the next. But it is entirely possible to attack into your opponent at about a similar power rate, while they have a better science rate, and they are a little bit more developed than you in these early timings in the game, like these early, like 30 turns or 40 turns or 60 turns, you know, and get yourself just enough of an edge that you can win a war, and then therefore not have to worry about the type of player who's going to outscale you in the long run. And sometimes, unfortunately, for players who don't scale well, that can sometimes be the only option available to them. Just see if I can fight an early war, get a lucky victory against my opponent, and then just end the game early. And maybe that's the thinking here from the Romans with their zealot ruler. Of course, they will be charging into a tactician who is ranger. So two ranger tacticians, or a ranger tactician on these woods is going to be yucky. I want to keep an eye on what this worker here does after the barracks. One thing that I think would be super useful in this situation from this spare worker, come down here, chop these forests, not these two right here, but chop these forests outside the border. Once we're putting our slingers in these woods, if we can make sure that we have nice open regions to attack these warriors into, that would be great. Another possible option that I've discussed a lot recently is maybe plop down a quick fort. That could come in handy quite a bit as well. Really, really liking the fact that he already has a warrior built from the championship and a second one coming along the way. A third one back here. Classic Fluffybunny. Fluffy is not opposed to just threading in military units. In fact, I wish I was watching more closely, because I really don't understand how Fluffy manages to just do everything quite efficiently. He always managed to find the exact solid balance between building workers, building improvements, building military units, building specialists, and, you know, he's just a smooth, efficient system here. Very, very basic layout here for the Assyrian player. It's just barracks in most cities. You know, barracks, officers, military units, and then focus on your primary resources that you're going to rely on. In this case, it's going to be iron. If we look at the stats here for improvements finished, improvements controlled, sorry. Fluffy already has 7 mines. 7 mines and 8 barracks on turn 32. Think about that for a moment and compare that to maybe your normal pacing if you're getting into this multiplayer arena and, you know, doing practice games. It's turn 32 and Fluffybunny already has 8 barracks across 6 cities. And he doesn't have a builder on the throne. You know, he started with a tactician, so it's not like he has any major economic advantage. Of course, he did start with Assyria, so they start with military drill. That's the advantage there. So certainly an advantage. But yeah, turn 32, we already have 8 barracks, 7 mines, more just finished on this turn. You know, he's probably up to like 9 mines now, and now he has Romans in the woods. The fight for Dur-Sharukin along the Araxes River is about to begin. Yep, placing. Oh, right, and he's a tactician, so he'll be invisibly in these woods. That actually makes it tricky. In a way, this is kind of hard to defend, because these warriors can still step on these tiles, bump you out of the woods, and now they have the forest protection, which is tricky to deal with sometimes. Going to keep an eye on this worker. 5 orders left. See if we decide to do anything defensive with it. We also have another work down here that we could choose to start moving up in the direction, but it definitely makes sense that he's going to be moving his military units. 2 orders left for Fluffybunny. The boat just came out in the capital. So we can. The really nice thing about this is, even ignoring clearing this Thracian site, this boat will be so handy in handling raids from the island, even if he can't get around to clearing the site anytime soon because of the impending conflict. The greatest defense you can actually have against coastal raids, apart from just piecing the tribe, is putting a bireme or 2 in the ocean, because 2 biremes can zone lock incoming raids in addition to doing massive damage to them on the water. But it's the zone of control more than anything that actually makes it easier to deal with incoming coastal raids from a tribal camp. All right, back to Rome's turn. Let's take a peek at what we're looking at. Fluffy is still similar. Really not looking forward to attacking a similar Assyria with Sentinel Slingers. That feels like a tongue twister. Similar Assyria with Sentinel Slingers. Whew! Okay. But I'm not looking forward to doing that with just warriors. And just as I finished that statement, Blunt Magic in chat said, if Rome goes through with this attack, it's not looking good. Yeah, no. Interestingly, we're going for a burn. This Roman player is about to realize that there are 4 tacticians in this woods. Because you have to remember, from his perspective, this player cannot see that there are actually 5 units in this region. To the Roman player, it only looks like there's 2 units in this region. If you can get the kill on this worker, that might not be too bad. I don't think it's worth all the expenditure here. No, we're out of orders. Okay, so let's head on over to the Fluff Monster and see what type of murdering he's going to lay onto his opponent. He's got lots of options here with locking units down with zone of control. So yeah, this is a very unfortunate and bad attack. Hate to call it out like that, but it kind of is. And simply because maybe the initial idea could have worked on some level, but the breaking up and the piecemeal nature of these units and spending so many orders, because I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to zone lock both of these warriors, whether he can kill them or not. He can stun this slinger. So Rome essentially just tossed away 3 units for nothing. Yeah, he's going to come here with this warrior right now and kill this warrior with his tactician warrior. Okay, or with the slinger. That's fine. Then he'll come up here. Oh, that's being stunned. All right, never mind. Doing it a little bit differently than what I would do, but it's fine. But now this guy's stunned. I really think what he could have done is he could have zone locked both of these units, still taking the kill, but even just taking this warrior and putting him... How would this work? How would this work? Well, right here and getting an attack. This guy would be zone locked. And then you could take the tactician ruler out here, stun this, and there you go. You secured a kill next turn and secured another kill potentially next turn or the turn after. So I'm actually a little surprised with some of that movement. But again, keep in mind... Oh, a critical hit! Ooh, that sucks. And this is why you don't attack Assyria when you're similar. Really sucks. Look at that. This was supposed to do 7 damage. It just did 14. This warrior is absolutely dead next turn. Devastating blow. And even Gel's reacting to think, wait, that was how much damage? Yeah, so the Assyrians can crit. You cannot predict it. And, we do play in these competitive matches with crits turned off because it's just a massive advantage for Assyria if they are turned on. And really, this is just showcasing it, though, because I really think it makes it... The other thing I like about having crits turned off is, it makes it a better defensive tool rather than offensive tool. It's great getting crits on the offense, but it's more reliable on defense because, every crit helps when you're trying to defend yourself. And this is a great example of the fact that this guy almost just got deleted by a regular warrior. It's a 100% damage. So 7 damage transforming into 14 damage as an attacker into this nation, Rome attacking into Syria. You can't account for that. Because literally, let's say this with 2 warriors. Any other normal combat situation, you'd think, well, these 2 warriors can't kill my warrior in 1 turn because they'll only do 14 damage. But if either one of those units crit, and Assyria will get a chance to roll a crit with every single unit, well, then 2 warriors can kill 1 warrior. So it's really, you need to bring 25% more units when attacking into Assyria, unless you have a serious timing advantage. Because speaking from experience, an Assyrian player that knows what they're doing, and also just because of the luck of crits, will win fights that they literally have no business winning just because they keep getting crits. Even 1 crit per round is enough to turn the tide of battle, but odds are they'll get quite a few. That's a great question. Should Fluffy chase? He can. I don't think so. I think he should just hang back, wait for his axe timing. He's bringing an axe now. Fluffy saying never underestimate attack mission. More importantly, never underestimate Assyria and Sentinel. Those are all 3 things right now that you should not underestimate were faced. Oh, we just got another crit. See, that's what I'm saying. So this 1 warrior over 2 turns did 28 damage. Isn't that insane? That's insane. We just got another crit. 10% my ass. That's so crazy. Man. Oh, we just got another crit. Oh my god. So imagine if we were in it. That's what I'm talking about. Imagine even if Rome had an advantage and, Assyria was like pressed up against the corner right now. Those 3 crits could just completely wipe out half of an early army or kill those 2 unique units that you weren't expecting to die. It's so hard to aggress against an Assyrian player because they're just going to explode your shit. Yeah. Yeah, they basically have wind fury for the World of Warcraft players out there. That's really funny reference. But yeah, man, need to be careful with Assyria. You need to have a strong advantage in your favor, or like a plan, or more units. Probably more bodies is the best answer, because you're gonna, we know you're gonna lose units in a battle. Like, there's almost no way to fight a war in Old World and not lose units, but that is double true for Assyria, because they're going to crit you. Yeah, so I don't think he needs to chase right now. I think he can give himself another 10 to 15, maybe 20 turns of build-up. He's building more axes. The other thing I would do is get your order economy. Do we have a law yet? We do not have a law in Assyria. So I think the thing that we're thinking now is get aristocracy, build a garrison in every city while building more axes. What else can we do for order economy? Get navigation. I think that's the game plan here. Put your garrisons in every city. Get navigation after aristocracy. I'm surprised we're not grabbing it now, but that's okay. Adopt serfdom. And then in the time frame it takes you to do that, then you can start building a road network, an aggressive road network. And the time it takes you to cap all that stuff off, you'll be ready for your own tempo attack. And you can probably be comfortable that you'll achieve that, since you know that the Romans just tossed away like 3 or 4 units. And you're a champ nation too, so it's not like you will struggle keeping up with the Roman output. Nice skirmish, nice early skirmish for the Assyrians. Victory at this stage of the early battle of the Araxes River goes to the Assyrians. They have shrugged off a very early Roman advance. And the really unfortunate thing about stuff like that is the tempo you lose, because basically, not only did we lose military units, which take up build queue time, but you have to think of it from this perspective, essentially, is every single order that Gel just spent on that assault was wasted. So every order moving into position and every order retreating achieved absolutely nothing. He didn't even get a kill, I don't believe. So sometimes, if he was trying to skirmish and take out an important wonder, that might be worth it. You can certainly make trades like that, where you're sending in a skirmish. Another crit, by the way. But the ruler is going to crit a bunch. The ruler the ruler is only 22% chance, and this one also crit each turn. So, Assyria is hacks, man. And we're building a hunt, which is lovely, which is great, because if we do the math on this hunt's coming out in 3 turns, and our current food rate is 5 food per turn. Hunt is a massively, massively underrated project, in my opinion. I love this project. It took me years to realize that this thing had any point or any use, but it does, because our food output right now in Assyria is not great. And if we want to build more settlers or anything else, well, we don't want to build it. Actually, we might want to build another settler. And we don't even have a lot of gold right now either. So it actually saves you the need to sell resources or buy resources if you just crank out a hunt real quick. And then if you ever happen to put a hunter's seat on a decent marble location later in the game, at strong or legendary, these become 300 or 400 food a pop, and you can get the production of these still down to being about 1 to 3 turns. So think about that. That's basically a project that's going to give you anywhere from 2 to 400 food a turn, and that's kind of nuts. Really, really underrated project. Niche project, but when you need it, it's great. And I think that's true for a lot of old world mechanics. There's tons of old world mechanics that they seem like they are useless 80% of the time. But that 20% of the time that you actually make use of them, boy, are they super, super useful. And I think Hunt is one of those things. Labor force now for the Romans. Nope, for the Assyrians. Got to hop back on the Romans and take a look at... We're getting aristocracy. Oh, what, did I mess that up? I think I messed up the tech path. I think I called out aristocracy for Assyria. Let me double check that. No, we did just get aristocracy. Okay, so we're doing aristocracy into labor force. I thought they were closer to navigation than they are. So yeah, I think the Assyrians are going to go up to navigation, adopt serfdom, build their garrisons now, and smash their opponent. And yeah, Aaron, I agree. Aaron said in the chat, said, I think we'll see more hunts in this tournament. And yes, because imagine a hunter city on a 2 or 3 marble location in the middle of the desert with no coast. That's going to be highly valuable. That would be an extreme example where the hunt could pay off dramatically in a map. And that's my favorite thing about the variety of map scripts in this tournament, is that it's really going to encourage players to dig deep into the different mechanics that are available, and there will be tons of different things where players have thought to themselves, well, I've never needed that. And, well, yeah, you probably never needed it on a coastal rain basin map or a seaside map or a continent map, but you sure as shit need that on an arid plateau or desert map. So that's really, really cool. Yes, and also things like hunters. On some desert maps, not hunters, riders. On some desert maps, you literally won't even be able to make a connection between your cities. So that, you know, guaranteed connection across different cities is going to shine more on some of the extreme maps. Championless Rome. We could see it. We saw that once last tournament. It did pretty well. Had a pretty strong game. We've got a fire in the north here. Nice to see more acolytes coming out. Still important to get your science online. I want to look at that now after that skirmish. Fluffy is already at 51 science per turn, so crushing that benchmark. And this is a good example of kind of being close to that benchmark. Gel at 30 is, you know, falling behind, but a 300 science tech deficit is not insurmountable. But that's one of the things that will signal to me, in this case, that you need to get more specialists. You need to get more your science operational. Getting aristocracy is going to be nice. That's going to be another science boost, which will be handy. So we'll have about a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 science jump in the next few turns, which was really going to be handy for the Romans. This is what makes barracks so great, though. They are everything that you need in a game. They give you science from officers. They give you training from officers. Certain things in a head-to-head matchup. So very, very versatile, valuable, high value, technology to invest in and to invest in early. Nice. We're building a shrine of Ashur, really making an effort to collapse these borders. So nice to see. I'd like to see this worker down here come and start working on garrisons, as well as this worker up here. We are clearing this coastal raid, and then, yeah, now we're going to anchor. Beautiful, beautiful, like clockwork here. Masterclass in handling the map that he's on in the situation. He has expanded flawlessly. He handled a raid flawlessly. He's developing his infrastructure, both economy, because he has decent econ, and he's also making up the food deficit with a hunt here. He's developed his economy flawlessly, and he's already repelled an early attack. So, very, very smooth game for the Fluffy. And, you know, no worries for Gel, because, I mean, I don't envy any of the players who are matched up against Fluffy or Frederick or even Klaus, or, you know, any of the top tier players in the first couple of rounds of the tournament. I'm really, if I win my first match, I'm not sure I will, but if I do win my first match, I'm super anxious about who the round 2 opponent could be, because it could be, you know, Oro. No, yeah, I think Oro already won, right? I can't remember. It could be, Yeah, Oro anyone. It could be Oro, it could be Alcaris, it could be Aaron if he wins, it could be Klaus, it could be Fluffy if Fluffy takes the victory here. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting and terrifying round 2 for all of the victors of round 1. I agree, Boldus. And I think that's honestly the best play you have. If you are up against an experienced player, obviously executing rush, it's a bit ironic because I would argue that a successful rush is probably one of the hardest things to pull off in this game. And one of the, or even, if it's not the hardest thing to pull off, it's certainly the riskiest thing, because if you pour everything into a 30 or 40 turn rush and it fails, then I think your chance of actually losing that game goes up dramatically. So it's a very risky play to rush. So it's a bit ironic because I do agree that for some of these lesser experienced players going up against the pros, arguably maybe their best chance is trying to go for a military gambit early. So it kind of like puts them in between a rock and a hard place where they have to execute one of the more difficult strategies in order to ensure that their opponent doesn't just sit back and take a lead. So it's an unenviable position for less experienced players. And, we're already having some conversations privately in the tournament chat about maybe ways for the next tournament to create a better way to ease in newer players comparative to being matched up against the more experienced players. And also that's beneficial for the more experienced players because it allows them to have their first games presented with, a little bit more of a challenge. So, because we still want to be welcoming to everybody, and certainly not a problem being new to multiplayer. That's part of the entire purpose of this tournament. But yeah, it's a bit demoralizing to go up against Fluffybunny for your very first multiplayer game, I must admit. And Gel did express himself that he was feeling a little bit nervous about the game, so I feel bad. I do, but I mean, he's playing a good game, though. It should be stated for Gel, especially if you listen in after the fact. Your expansion's been pretty okay. You obviously fell behind a little bit. Your science priority and your science rate is looking good now. You're hitting my bare minimum benchmarks. Really, your big blunder in this case was gearing up for an early assault. That basically went nowhere. But otherwise, I mean, for the most part, things are looking good here. You did get barracks already, and you're only building... Well, no, you're actually building 3. So, okay, yeah. 4. All right, yeah. So you're in a great spot. You're doing what you should be doing. Getting 4 barracks up across the empire. So obviously he is catching up on that front. Is this an autonomous city? No, it's not. Don't build militia. And that about sums that up. Yeah, don't build militia. You can build militia, but if you're building like 2-turn militia. High growth city, 1 or 2 turn militia, I've absolutely militia spammed. There's nothing wrong with that, but why are we going to spend 5 years worth of build queue building militia? That doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah. And I had to add in that clarification because I'm sure someone will watch a game with me where I have one city building 1 billion militia for half the game. And so it is something that I will do from time to time, but only if the build time is low. And that's the thing to conceptualize a lot when it comes to what you should build. Is like, so projects is another great example. Tons of people think projects aren't worth it, but I actually think projects are really great value as long as you can get your civic production up quick enough that the project that you're building is only 1 to 3 turns to finish. But a 5-turn project or 6-turn project is probably not something that you want to invest in. Yeah, Gel is playing fine. I agree, Chariots would have been a great choice, Gambler. He's actually going Steel right now, which I'm not really feeling. Your opponent does have axes. If your opponent goes heavy axes, the realistic counter to that is actually Spoked Wheel. Of course, then Spoked Wheel gets countered hard by Phalanx, and round we go. But I think if we're ignoring the traditional melee units, I actually think I'd love to see something like a Spoked Wheel, Chariot, and Archer play. Probably a bit hard to get both of these early, but I would really love to see a composition. I don't think we've seen a lot of those where it's primarily archers and primarily chariots, because I think the archers would make quick work of spears, and then, of course, the chariots do what chariots do. I agree, Skipper. Chariots are always a good choice. I think they're hard to conceptualize sometimes because spears really, really do ruin their day. But the opponent can only build so many spears. So if you bring axes along, if you have a chariot axe combo, which is another popular one, then you can just beat up all the spears. And or again, even archers, because the thing that a primarily archer combo against the spears is what you'll run into. Having a mostly melee composition sucks. And one of the things that can make that a little easy is if that melee composition is in fact chariots, because they're more mobile. But if you've built primarily spears to counter the threat of chariots, and then you go up against a primarily archer-based army, I actually think it's pretty easy to lose that matchup because the archer's army is going to be way more order efficient and they can focus fire better. Where like in little battlefields like this, where you can only cross between a couple of tiles, the spears are going to get jammed up and they're going to have nowhere to move. So even if it literally were just archers versus spears on this battlefield, I feel like the archers would win. So that's something to think about. Excuse me, forgive me. I didn't have time to mute my mic before I sneezed. I should hotkey that. I don't have a hotkey for that, but I should probably do that. Whoops, my bad. What do we have here? Oh, we have a fort here. Love this. Love this, love this, love this. This is a fantastic location for a fort, and we're not under threat in the moment, so maybe we didn't need to do this in this moment. But what I like to say when I discuss these early forts, this is going to be the new flatland quarry of the tournament, by the way. Last year, I wouldn't shut up about flatland quarries, and I feel like this year I'm not going to shut up about forts. But the thing I really like about this is that, dude, it's just one turn worth of build time. One turn. You really don't lose much from cranking this out real quick. You put this fort here in a decent location, and then you can go back to your business. You know, 1 or 2 forts just sprinkled into your normal daily routine. And then, if you end up surprised by an oncoming attack, you don't need to disrupt your worker economy, because your worker economy can actually continue business as usual, but you were so much more protected from an attack. So I actually don't mind that we're threading in a fort here, and it's something that I do from time to time. You know, build a garrison, build a barracks, another barracks perhaps, and then toss in a fort. And then, build your pasture, build a mine, and then toss in a fort. It's just one turn. No big deal. Yeah, compo is a tricky tech, because I think it's a really great tech, but it's in a rough spot layout-wise, and also archers are super expensive because they cost wood. That's Alcaris's main complaint about them, and I do agree, because if you do go straight for compo and get archers, well, then you need to have a plan for getting wood income or ending the game before you go into too much debt. So archers are definitely tricky to utilize. I really think there's a fantastic balance between all the different units of the windows of operation. Really, and honestly, I still think there's a possibility for Macemen to work, especially in this meta with the smaller maps and the different timing windows. But really, of all the units in the game, I think the Maceman is the only unit that really sticks out as somebody who doesn't feel like they have a good window, because, as everybody knows at this point, I've fully been converted to horse archer worship. So I know that they're good for some time, at least. But otherwise, all the units have a really cool, interesting kind of semi-rock, paper, scissor dynamic. 46 science in Assyria now, which is nice because that means the Romans have caught up pretty decently. We've actually lost a little bit. Did we have a ruler die? Let's take a peek. Nope. Ruler's still on the throne. Must have had a husband. Our husband died. Did we have a really good husband? I didn't actually check out who our husband was. We have a tactician heir. So we're going tactician into tactician. And we're going into a scholar from our zealot for Rome. That's going to be nice if we can mount a defense, keep Fluffy at bay, because that will allow us to recoup our science deficit in the mid-game, which is quite nice. Skipper saying they feel like archers aren't strong enough to justify the cost. It's a critical mass thing. And I say this from somebody who has Like, I've done the purple bloomus phalangite thing against Fluffy, actually, of all people. And I've lost a game to him. Well, I had 7 laws and he had 2. But he had a billion archers. And I had primarily phalangites. I fell into that trap of not building myself enough range units. And I actually lost to him. Because enough archers can kill anything, basically. 3 range. You know, they don't need to move to shoot anything. So against a melee unit that's coming at them, it can be very, very tricky to deal with. You think that you're stronger than you are, but then all of a sudden 7 archers kill an 8 strength unit with no problem. And that sounds like a crazy ratio, but then they do it again and again and again, and the max that you can kill with everything bunched up and falling into this melee choke point trap. If the battlefield isn't favorable to you, you can only kill about 2 units, 3 units per turn, but they're also doing the same thing because it's a million archers. So it's a critical mass thing, I think, on archers. If you have enough of them, they're really, really terrifying. But yes, an archer on its own, 1 to 2 archers, I think, is sure outclassed by even a couple of spears. Certainly a critical mass thing. Try Kush, because you'll have easy access to forts. Now that you know forts are good in that scenario. My personal barbarian horde nation is, in fact, Greece. I think the hoplites and phalangites are disgusting in the barbarian horde, and it's so easy to get them up and running quick. Doing decrees in the state seat. Like to see the minor coming out in Roma. Like to see all of this specialist coming out in Roma. Really, really nice growth in this city as well. I'm going to get another another specialist, forgive me, in 3 turns. We're building a barracks, so we're going to be able to go from this iron miner to an officer. We have 16 science in Rome compared to the highest science in Assyria is 9.8 science. So that's nice. Let's take a look at governors before I blame all of that on landowners. So we're getting 2.3 science in the capital of Assyria. If we hop back on over to Rome, we do have a scholar who's bringing us 6 science. So adding 10 science. However, if we take away the governors, it's still 10 science from this capital. And this would have been only 4 science from this capital. So kind of low-key. Landowners is a little bit low-key one of the science nations, one of the science families, because of how rapidly they can ramp up their raw science output through rural expansion. And then, yeah, if you have a nice scholar, man, let's see what the scholar's really adding. Witty, yeah. So plus 50% on top of this base rural specialist science. We do have 2 acolytes in here as well, but yeah, really nice output. So good to see that. Cool to see that. Yep. Rome is now only 10 science behind Assyria, which is a really good spot to be in. Really good spot to be in. Not seeing as many garrisons as I would have liked as out of Fluffy at this moment. We're still doing the mining thing, which is all right, but I would have expected more garrisons. We actually have peace with the Vandals, so that's a nice grab. I don't know if we did that on purpose or not. We do have an ambassador, so it's possible. But nice to not have to worry about them for a little bit. We don't really have a way to cross into the island just yet. So this is a great example of how to handle a tribal threat. I was talking about how ships being the best defense against raid, but the absolute best defense against coastal raids is just piecing out the tribe. And I really don't think we see enough players take advantage of that. So that's nice to see. We're getting a hamlet. Mines. More mines. We're doing salt mines. Garrison. Nice to see. regular quarries coming out. So both economies are pretty stable, which is nice. Politics in Rome is pretty solid. Politics in Assyria is amazing on the Champions family. Plus 400 opinion on the Champs family, which is nice because this is going to be your primary military family. Really nice opinion with the pagans as well. Oh, yeah. One of the things I like to look out for these religions is there's very often ambitions that will give you opinion with a religion, and often I will go so far as to say no to certain ambitions, simply because I'd rather fish for the ones that give ambitions opinion as reward, and try to complete those ones instead. Can be a real. This is really great when you think about this. Is plus 68 opinion over 34 years. I believe it started at 80 over 40. So really, really solid boost. And there's more than one of them. There's more than one event that will offer you really good opinion. And here's another example. This one right here says gave support 28 over 20 years. So this was a 40 over 40, I suspect. And that wasn't an ambition, but that was certainly an event outcome. So if you can try it as your best to pick like at least one of the religions, because they often compete against each other. But if you can get the religion of choice in power, and then do anything that you can when it comes to event outcomes to give them opinion boosts, that is a way that you can really ensure the political stability of your nation over time, because this 194 opinion is filtering all the way down to the Champions family. So if we take that away, there's still going to be plus 300, but a lot of that is also coming from our lovely 166 is coming from our family head. So if we lost this ruler and got somebody who, I don't know, had zero opinion, and then we never had a religion, we would have, that would be 200, that would be 300. Yeah, it would be down to something like 87 opinion, or like 187, which is still a lot, but yeah, you really get a lot out of religions. Graphs, please, on turn 40. Yeah, sure. Turn 40, Assyria is climbing up in power, and that's a real bummer because, again, if we didn't lose these guys, this power graph would probably be about halfway between where Assyria are now. Assyria and Rome are now. So really got to be careful about your attacks. Don't want to throw away units over nothing because it becomes harder and harder to replenish forces. Well, I guess it becomes easier and easier to replenish forces, but early on, when you lose units, it's a tall order to replace a 6 or 8 turn warrior. So 478 to 310 in favor of the Assyrians. Orders are also ramping up for the Assyrians as well, which I assume at this point is going to come from legitimacy. Yet the legitimacy for the Assyrians is quite a bit higher than the Romans. We have 141 legitimacy to 94 for the Romans. Science still leads for the Romans. The science deficit at this point for Rome. Sorry, science leads for the Assyrians. The deficit for Rome at this point is about 250 science. Food economy favors Rome. Iron economy massively favors Assyria. Assyria already has 100 iron per turn, which is great if you're going to be cranking out a bunch of axes. Stone also favors Rome, 51 to 30. Sorry, Assyria. Why do I keep swapping them? Assyria is ahead on stone, 51 to 40 something. Nobody's making wood right now. Other important things we care about with workers. Workers have actually equalized a little bit. 6 in Rome now, 5 in Assyria. Notice this about Assyria, right? It's turn 40. We fully expanded very early. Notice how Fluffy doesn't have a lot of workers. He has 6 workers total. He built 5 workers, and he had the one that he started with. So that's one thing I notice a lot when I review games of him. He's not one of those players who's all like, I need to build 2 or maybe 3 workers per city. He's very, very content with an average ratio of about 1 worker per city here. So keep that in mind. You can do a lot with a little. And also, It doesn't matter if you have 1 million workers if you don't have the orders to back them up, and then the other way around. It doesn't matter if you have 1 million orders if you don't have the workers to back them up. So I think Fluffy is very good at keeping his tempo, his development tempo, connected with his order rate. Not having too many workers than what he needs. And 5 workers is enough to do a lot, because if we look at the improvement stat, we're on turn 41, 35 improvements. So that's almost 1 improvement per turn at this stage for Fluffy. And, not the most amazing. We've seen better values at this stage, I suppose. But this is manageable. 10 barracks, 15 mines, all of our shrines, a couple of garrisons. It's not... You don't need to break the bank getting yourself in a position to really do some serious damage. Also, notice how we're cycling our queues quite nicely. We have an apprentice officer coming here. We have workers and a disciple coming up north. And then 2 units are building military units. We're doing another military unit in the champion seat. We're doing a worker up north. So notice how we are not seeing one of those situations where every single city is building a worker, or every single city is building specialists or units. He has a mix going on, and that's going to also help your global stockpiles as well, because you're not sapping your training by building nothing but military units, or sapping your civics by building nothing but specialists. So really nice balance to see there. I think he's been juggling that quite nicely. I think, he still doesn't have a barracks in his capital, but he did take the time to build an officer in this city, and now he's building an axeman. And now down here, he's taking the time to build his officers. While also, if we look on the barracks, by the way, they already still have 2 axemen on that. So he's juggling his queues quite nicely. Really nice treat to get to watch Fluffy play the game. Now over on this side, we actually see the reverse, right? Or what I was saying. Yes, there's a little bit of juggling, but we have growth, specialist, project, and this was a project, but now it's council. And council is useful sometimes. I don't know why he's doing council at the moment, but it's useful sometimes. But this is going to sap civic production a little bit. Let's hop on over to Rome and actually see where our civic production at. 39, not too bad. Not amazing, but not too bad. And then, of course, as we look at power, right? Go back to the power graph. With Assyria rising, this is the power gap now, about 120 power. But we know Assyria is currently building at least 2 axes, while Rome is currently building no military units. So that goes back to one of the things that I've said from time to time, where it's like, you want always... again, you'll watch me play, and every rule or benchmark or whatever that I toss out there, I'm sure people will watch games and see me not doing that thing, right? So these are just concepts, right? So I'm about to say, on average, you want at least one of your build queues building a military unit at all times, right? Does that mean that you can never have a moment where you're not building any military units? Of course not. Of course you can. You can do that. That's fine. No big deal. So I don't want people being like, oh, well, Scion says always have a military unit under production, but then I watched him play, and for 20 turns, he didn't build a single military unit. Well, I'm capable of making mistakes or getting tunnel vision, and then B, these are just general guidelines. They're not hard, fast rules that I always do and always succeed at, even if I'm trying to do them. But generally, in terms of concept of build queue juggling, I want to look at a situation like the Assyrian Empire, where I have 6 or 7 cities. 2 of my cities or 3 of my cities are building civilians. 2 or 3 of my cities are building units. 2 or 3 of my cities are building specialists. That way, there's a balance spread out across the empire of giving me everything that I need to have a successful game. I have science being increased. I have military being increased. I have economic development being increased. All those different things. So now we're seeing a little bit more military tilt here. But this is okay. Swapping to an axe in this situation is fine, because we just built 2 officers. We already had our 2 axes. We built 2 officers, and now we're going back to axes. That's fine. So then maybe, let's say, for the sake of the argument, we would just... Oh, actually, we already have our officers in the capital. I keep forgetting the barracks are over here. My bad. And look at this. I love this. So... this is a great example of not being shackled to adjacency bonuses. Don't get me wrong. I think making the triangle of barracks and garrisons for order efficiency is very great and very efficient. But in this particular situation, Fluffy chose to build his garrison here to ensure that he could expand the coastline and collapse again without needing to worry about colonies and tile buying or even a border boost. So do not shackle yourself to any concept in this game. As you play, as you get better, as you learn, as you think creatively about problem solving, never think that you can't build your barracks or your garrison here to collapse this border because you think you must build it next to your barracks to get that extra order efficiency. Both are valid choices, by the way. If you built the garrison here, I wouldn't be complaining about it, but I also understand and respect the decision to toss it up here to increase his coastal network. Super viable. And we're also seeing a shrine coming out here. Same difference. It's very easy to think, well, there's cattle here. I don't want to get rid of this because this is going to be a pasture one day. Or is it more important to set up your coastal highway? He's building an urban tile here, which is going to give him adjacency along this coast. He's already moving units along this coast. And then he'll be able to put more urbans down this coast, giving himself a coastal highway. He has actually had a slinger dating here, so he looks like he's getting ready to aggress. And guess what? This coastal highway is going to serve this axe. This axe can get all the way over here in one turn. And he's inland. He's not even on the coast yet. If he was the coast, he could probably get all the way up here. But he's going to get all the way here in one turn, and then he's going to get all the way up here-ish in another turn, right? So, really nice efficiency there from Fluffy, taking advantage of the map that he's in and recognizing, no, I want a coastal highway. And that, to me, think about the order savings as well. The order savings of expanding this coast and collapsing this border is greater in the life of the game than the orders you would get from this adjacency. So that's another way to think about it as well. So cool play there from Fluffy. Always a pleasure to watch. We're seeing a garrison down here as well. Same difference. He's emphasizing adjacencies less, and he's focused more on the strategic potential and capability of what he's building instead. So really nice to see it. Another way that you could keep this a little bit more efficient if you were so inclined is you could have done barracks, garrison, barracks, then you have the same usual type of adjacency, but you're still building that coastal network. That's another way to do it. But I believe these were built before he even had a law. So, and that's another great example. He built these before he had a law, and he didn't worry about the efficiency or the adjacency here. He just got the thing out and completes his overall objective, which is better transport network. And we have a spoked wheel follow-up as well after axes. Let's take a look at our horse network. Where are our horses? Really, my big hope here is for... this is the level of micro that I do, that I don't think Fluffy is 100% keyed into on this moment. But my hope, or in general, because I think sometimes even when we play our private games, I'll show him some tile buying or tile swapping shit that I've done, and he's like, oh, wow, yeah, that was clever. Really, really hoping that Fluffy has the wherewithal to swap this tile. It's in the cleric city, but take the opinion hit, I wouldn't care, into your champion seat, because then you can get chariots out of your champion seat, and that would just be so delightful. So we want to keep an eye on this. I suspect he probably won't do that, because that's not normally his style. But yeah, if you're so inclined to swap tiles, that's great. We do have pasture coming on here, which is going to be better orders and access chariots in approximately 5 turns. Really nice to see. And we already have our officers coming on. I'm sure we'll queue up a new officers next turn. It will be out in 3 turns, just in time. Spoked wheels coming out in 5. So again, all the wheels are turning in Sierra. In fact, poor Gel, you know. I'm always like, watch these games, and you'll get tips on your gameplay. And I've just been obsessing over Fluffy's efficiency for the last 20 turns. But Gel is also playing a nice game. We're getting border boost now, which is pretty solid because we're fully expanded for the most part. Obviously, we didn't get the city, but the border boost should grab these, actually, which is nice because that means we might not even ever need to settle the city. We can stay at peace with the Vandals, and we get the big benefit of this island, which is these groves. So that's really nice. That's going to be a really nice border boost. Yes. Oh, and that's a great point. This officer's mentioning how if you build chariots in the capital, they're also going to pop out on this coastline. That's another thing about this coastal planning. In fact, as long as he leaves an axe here, this axeman is also going to pop out on one of these tiles, which when you think about it, even that micro decision is going to save Fluffy about 1 order every time he builds a unit, as long as this axe just stays put. And if you're worried about clogging up an axe all game, pop a militia onto this tile and it will do the same thing. It will shift the spawn to the barracks, because when you have the shrine, the training shrine, that takes first priority over barracks, unfortunately. So you need to kind of clog that up first. Really, really, really nice call out on that mechanic, Zoffister. And this is something I like to do, not to do the landowner thing, but going back to Rome, if I did do that whole tile buying shenanigans that I talked about earlier, where you get a Roman capital such as this with its border all the way over adjacent to this city, it's super satisfying to get your barracks over here, because then look at how many savings. You'd save like 4 orders, 2 orders, 2 to 4 orders by having your military units pop out about half a screen away. Really, really fun, exciting time to do that. Of course, it takes time to build that up, so it's not always the best decision. That's another one of those stupid tricks that, is it worth it? I don't know. Is it awesome? Absolutely. Oh, Skipper, you never played Wrath of the Gods? I think you're going to like that scenario. It's a little bit more survival-oriented, but it's basically Barbarian Horde on super hard mode. I like it. That's probably one of my favorite scenarios. I really like the Wrath of God scenario. I don't play it all that often. And then Frederick got obsessed with it. Frederick went through it. Like, if you want to look on the Theorycraft on Discord, I think there's at least a couple of threads of Frederick talking about his strategies and time exploring that, because I think for like a solid 6 months, that was all he seemed to play on Old World, which was really cool, because I think it's a very well done scenario. It's a unique way to play the game, and I would love to see more people play it. And if you do play it, you should stream it, because it would be cool to see somebody playing that with no clue how it plays. Just like a blind, fresh, first-time run, because I'm sure it'll be super frustrating, because it is a super frustrating scenario. But if you like Barbarian Horde, I'm sure you like it. More axes coming up in Assyria. I want to look at that power graph. It's only been 4 turns, but the power graph is rising for Assyria. But fortunately, it's also rising for Rome. But yeah, really losing this power. If we did not assault early in the game, I think Rome and Assyria would actually be neck and neck in power right now. So let this be another lesson to those. Even if you're going to lose units, make sure you're achieving an objective with an early assault. Filthy casual. Well, the Wrath of God scenario is definitely harder than the Barbarian Hordes, in my opinion. So that goes without saying. Yeah, so I said I was going to look more at Rome. Take a peek at what we're doing. So our science is looking good now. I want to do another comparison between the two. Yeah, we're really getting close to equalizing. About a 350 advantage for Fluffy, which is not a lot. That's about 1 to 2 technologies worth of tech advantage. Maybe 3, depending on which technology they are. Liking to see the Hamlet here. Really, I think there's a missed opportunity up in Florentia, because we're not utilizing the landowner tile buying. So Gel, if you're watching, and everyone else, what Gel could have done is tile bought this coast for the connection, and we see a hamlet here. And this hamlet could have gone here to push out to this coast, which would have grabbed this, and then between this hamlet and a hamlet here from Florentia, this coast would have been collapsed. The landowners would have been tile bought us for a collapse. And yeah, we would have had our southern coast completely collapsed, similar to what Fluffy has in his northern coast. So definitely important to remember the power of the landowners. Tile buying, I think, is one of their strongest perks, and it's useful in tons and tons and tons of situations. Useful for getting extra resources, useful for denying center resources. Imagine if these were the only resources on the map, horse resources on the map, and we had settled a forward landowners, you could snaky tile buy to grab these resources. Obviously, super valuable to securing tactical locations with tile buy, such as this lake transport or river transport. Very, very versatile. We have aggressive movements up north, so we're going to have a little bit of a failure of scouting here. Going back to the idea of what we have from the Roman player, and I'm pretty sure Fluffy is aware that there's a scout here because I think he tracked its movement from when it was down here. So this would explain, if there is awareness, I would not put it past Fluffy for realizing, you know, don't stage in the center because this is where the scout is for now. So he's staging up north, and this is a trap that I think players could get into it, and honestly, I'm guilty of it too. You can get your scout to your opponent's border, and then you just stand there looking at their border. Makes sense to do that. This is one of the values of having multiple scouts, because we could have a scout down here and a scout in the north. But we don't have multiple scouts, so if you do not have multiple scouts, do one of two things. Either every now and then move your scout around, take a couple of orders, and just peek in other directions where you know there are woods, so we could take a turn, come down here, be like, okay, nothing happens in Tushpa, no big deal. Come back up here, be like, okay, all quiet in the center, no here. And look, we can make it all the way up here, and there's woods here. So take another different turn, and it doesn't have to be back to back. I'm not saying move your scout every turn, I'm just saying every few turns, take a peek in a different location rather than staring at the same location all game long, because that doesn't really give you any information. It gives you some, but we have a big blind spot up here in the plain of Catania, and that's going to be a big issue for the Romans, especially because there's going to be a second tactician on the throne, so these woods will get plenty of staging for the Romans to pick a fight. Yeah. Still looking good overall development for the Romans. Really, somehow we ended up with 700 wood, and I don't see a lot of chopping, so we must have got a really lucky burst of events at some point. I don't know why. Or we maybe dumped a lot of our gold into early wood buying, but 700 wood on the Romans is looking pretty nice. Won't need to worry about room. Ugh. My mouth moves faster than my brain works. Or maybe that's the other way around. Maybe my brain's faster than my mouth. But anyway, we won't need to worry about wood for quite some time. Who came up with the tongue twister for the speaking exercise? Something about leather? Red leather? I want to write that down. Just DM me that if you're in the chat currently. I want to Google some of that stuff myself anyway, so I can get a little bit better at this casting stuff. I also need to figure out how radio hosts and stuff maintain their voice, because after last weekend, I needed to take a whole day where I barely spoke at all to kind of recover my voice. Oh, but I'm motivated to do a little bit more research on that front. Get better. Red leather, yellow leather. It sounds weird because when I say that, it actually feels nice when I say that. Which sounds a little weird saying that out loud, but yeah. Red leather, yellow leather. Thanks for that, chat. And if you're watching after the fact on the YouTube, sorry that you are subjected to my odd conversations. But it does look like we are doing some serious staging. Loving the rancher. More order economy. More order economy. No. Oh, we're exposing our boat and adding an anchor up north. So this is interesting. This is interesting. Are we tempting our opponent to relocate? And then maybe we make a play. This, leaving the axe exposed out here, will certainly, once the scout react... Oh, where did the Roman scout go? Oh, hey, cool. The Roman scout actually did take a peek down Tushpa. So kudos, Gel. You did exactly what I said you should be doing, pretty much right when I said it. So that's awesome. Nice job down there. But unfortunately... Unfortunately, Gel is peeking in the wrong direction. You know, he literally had a 50-50 chance to get this right. Unfortunately, and he went south when the entire Assyrian army is north. So he's going to gain no important information, but of course the ship is going to tip Fluffy's hand now. So we're going to get a nice early assault. And I think this was the way to go. We asked back somewhere on turn like 25 or 30-ish when Rome assaulted, launched a failed assault into Assyria, if Assyria should chase. And I think Fluffy did the exact correct thing and just kind of held back, built himself up more. Look, way more axes are coming out. Ironically, though, by moving the axe off of this axe is going to come out there again, so that's kind of funny. Maybe you could take a moment to put a militia on it or something. But yeah, so I think he did the correct thing by building up his power base and building up his transportation network, building up his resource economy. He had 135 iron coming per turn, which means he can basically build axemen indefinitely from multiple different cities. Building another slinger out in the north. And look at Fluffy being very simple with his queues. He builds a worker and then he builds a military unit, which I think is very viable on these smaller arenas if you're trying to skirmish early. No, I trust our players, of course. I mean, the reality of it for all of us is there's no way we can accurately and appropriately monitor whether somebody's stream sniping or anything like that. But we humbly request and put our full faith in the community and player base that they're not going to do stuff like that because, it's not really worth it. And then also, from my personal perspective, this might sound a little bit more conceited than I intend, but I really do kind of believe this. I think any player who is likely to cheat in this tournament, it probably won't matter. Like, I don't believe Fluffy would cheat because he doesn't need to. So let's say, for the sake of the argument, and to be very clear, Gel, no one is accusing you of cheating, but just say for the sake of the argument, Gel was streaming, sniping right now. I don't think it would make a difference. I mean, because, I think if I literally played against Fluffy, and I've done this, we actually played a game where we had the map fully revealed. We've done this more than once, and both games he still beat me. So even if I can see everything that Fluffy is doing, he still beats me. So that's the good news. I think anybody who would try to cheat in this game, probably it wouldn't really make too much of a difference. Maybe in some situations, but for the most part, probably not. But no, we do give our players the benefit of the doubt, and of course, we think it just makes the whole experience better if players try not to stream snipe or watch footage or try to gain an edge over their opponent through less than sportsmanlike ways. All right, making some nice movements, really positioning in these woods. It doesn't look like Rome reacted, right? I mean, I guess he got some axes into the region. But look at these axes. These axes are going to do serious damage. One turn to spoked wheel, too, so we can get started in a fight. Crank out a couple of chariots. That's my favorite thing to do. You do not want to dive into a fight with chariots, usually. Sometimes there's a reason you get an opportunity. Maybe you can open with a nice route chain or, take out some onagers or whatever, right? But my favorite thing to do, and I think arguably the best thing to do with the chariots, is let them hang back for a while, stage them where they can get access to the fight, sure, but just keep them back and then fight the battle for maybe even as long as like 3 or 4 turns, because once the battle really starts like getting thick and, heated and, prolonged, you're going to get in a situation where both players are taking losses, so you have your opponent in a situation where half of their units are half health or less, and then that's when you can come in with the chariots and really deal a devastating blow. Because it can be very easy with things like the bonus horseman card or the bonus unique unit card to charge right in with your strongest unit and then have it die right away. So you kind of unfortunately toss away. Really love the civic buying here from Rome, by the way. Rome's realized they're in danger, and they're reacting nicely. And he swapped his queues, by the way. Very great reaction from Gel here. He swapped. This was not a axe, I don't think. Yep, so it just became the Roman turn. So just in the nick of time before Assyria ended his turn, he swapped to another act. This is going to be developing next turn, so he can begin rushing from the seat if he needs to, but he probably won't need to. He had the boat. He had the free byreme. He didn't go for the free byreme. That's fine. He's going for navigation. Okay, and now we'll look at the power graph on the Roman turn. They're just a little behind. I think this updates on Fluffy's turn, so we'll have to look again next turn. He's just a little behind, but the nice thing about the power graph is even though that we know Fluffy is more powerful, we also have to take into consideration there's an axe here, 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 and there's 2 slingers down here. So there's always an inherent advantage to the defender because you're more likely to have a higher concentration of your power in a location of a battle if you are defending against an opponent. Not always, because maybe you're trying to clear a camp or whatever, but it's more likely that the defender will have a higher concentration of their power engaged in a battle than the attacker will. And then the attacker has to spend more orders and all sorts of other stuff, reinforcing and replenishing the battle as well. So there's very much an attrition mechanic in this game. Well, should I say there's very much of attrition dynamic in this game, which I love because this game doesn't actually have an attrition mechanic, right? Some strategy games like Age of Empires, they have that attrition mechanic, right? And that's used to model attrition in warfare. And that's cool, and that's fine, and it works for the game. Nothing wrong with actually designing a mechanic around it. But one thing I love about Old World in particular is it feels like the natural process of the way orders, economy, supply lines, and movement interact creates a realistic sense of battlefield attrition without them actually having an attrition stat or an attrition mechanic. And I think that's super, super, super cool. Also want to highlight another great move here from Gel. We have a governor, a judge governor in the state seat. Very important not to forget that you can rush by decrees with gold. So as long as your wealth is plentiful, and we have pretty decent gold stockpiles in Rome, he can essentially get himself an extra 6 orders per turn for the beginning duration of this Rome. He did this war. I would have held off on the tile buying. One of the the rush buying. One of the advantage of the tight turnstile is you can do reactive rushing. So what we could have done here. Oh, are we swapping to the bireme? I'll be curious if we do. I think navigation is still a good grab. No, he's staying on navigation. Great. So one of the advantages of a tight turnstile that also kind of lends itself to the defender a little bit is Gel could have hung back in the build queue and waited to see if Fluffy actually enters, right? Because if Fluffy doesn't attack this turn, then maybe Gel doesn't need the extra orders next turn. So, but we are seeing the attack now, right? And then this could have been the moment where Gel decided to rush by this decree because he'll think to himself, yep, I'm going to need 6 more orders next time. Fortifications stop draining orders after they are fully fortified. So these guys are not spending orders anymore, I believe. I believe they stop spending orders once they're fully fortified. But I'll try to have my camera down here a little bit to make sure I check on that. Yeah, actually you can see it right here. Minus however many orders for improvement construction. It would say -2 orders for fortification. Maybe this was a waste of orders long term, in fairness, if that's what you're saying. So yeah, that's possible. But it does eventually stop. Once it maxes out, it stops draining orders. All right, this is a very, very nice attack. I really like the triangle configuration with a couple of tacticians capped off by a zealot as well. Makes it very, very difficult to secure kills. This is the moment. Does Romans? Oh, Romans do not have spoked wheel. So this is another thing. I think we actually spoke about this early. The idea that getting spoked wheel early on Rome up against Assyria could probably be handy. And yes, if you're going to deal with a bunch of axes and slingers coming at you, if Rome's had chariot right now, even though we're in the woods and not on flatland, could still be a very risky proposition for the Assyrians. Yes, and being moved, defending behind a city is often better than defending in front of a city because you want your opponent to come in to the battlefield. And this is really nice. We are taking advantage of the flanking mechanic from the Romans. And I think we will secure this kill. Probably kill secure with a slinger. Nice, nice, nice. And we also are in a decent position to provide zone of control lock. I'd like to see maybe a slinger come up here or try to force march its way down here. Get full zone lock on the majority of this army, because that can really be devastating to force your opponent or to freeze your opponent in place. Of course, without good scouting from the Roman part, that's a very risky play because we have no idea what's back here. We do know... Oh, no, we don't have a strong capital yet. Yeah, so we have no idea what's back here. Assyria is now stronger than the Romans, though, so that's certainly cause for concern. And we have another axe coming out next turn, which is great. We did move one of these fortified axes. So yes, in terms the long-term sense of fortifying this location, it ultimately was a waste of orders, but you do not spend the orders in forever. All right, so only one order left. This type of situation, what do you do? I really don't understand the militia situation down here, but it is what it is, I suppose. Okay, we spent some training, and we got into the woods. I'm glad we got into the woods with this axe, to be honest, because it's going to be important to get into these woods with these axes. It's going to be a really nice advantage for us. Look at the drop in damage. This warrior can do 7 damage to an axe back here, right? But it can only do 4 or 3 damage to the axes directly in front of it. So fighting in the woods is really going to be a really nice advantage for the Romans here, which is good. More axes coming behind, though. So going to be a solid skirmish, but I think the Romans could hold this. Yep, buying decrees is certainly a pay-to-win strategy indeed. Well, looks like we got a science boost on navigation, too. That's probably why he took another look at the tech tree, because he probably had an event that gave him a science boost, and that's a fun little trick you can do. If you're already on a tech and you get something like 100 science boost in your turn, you can always look at your hand again and decide if you want to put that 100 science towards something different. Like maybe that science boost would have gotten him the boat right now, and maybe he would have decided that was a good idea. I actually think the boat would have been a good idea, because you could stop the anchoring up here. All right, another kill for the Assyrians. I'm just going to keep the camera on the Roman side of things, because I like to see battles play out from the defender's perspective for some reason. The one unit down will be able to stun another with the tactician. Be curious what decisions we make. I want to take a quick peek. Order economy for both players. Order advantage to Fluffy, 29 orders to 18 for the Romans. So that's a really, really nice order advantage from Fluffybunny. Really good thing that the Roman player decided to stick with navigation, because serfdom is going to come in clutch. Hopefully he won't dump too many extra civics into rushing out any units, because he has just enough now to adopt serfdom, so you don't want to lose that advantage, or that opportunity rather, not that advantage, but the opportunity. One thing I will say about militia is that militia are really handy in a fight like this, because if you can get them into the back line, they're really, really good at clogging up battlefields with zone of control. Axe in the woods down. So four Assyrian axes in the region, with 3 Assyrian slingers, to 3 Assyrian axes and 3 Assyrian slingers. We will have one more axe next turn, so we will equalize, and we also have another axe coming up. I like the roading along the coast as well. And I'm sure this will transform into colony tile buying at some point as well, which would be really rough to deal with. Nice to have some early actions. This is a timing window. The turns that you need to worry yourself with in I think the dual meta is between turn 30 and 40 for very early rush invasions. Between turn 50 and 60-ish, maybe 70 on the longer end, but for large-scale timing attacks, so you're talking about unique units, either 6 or even 7. Some players can get 7 unique unique units inside of 70 turns, which can be really, really hard to deal with because they're 8 strength. But that's the timing window. And then anytime, I consider the definitive end game of the average duel certainly around turn 90, maybe 80 or 90, and then beyond. So you want to make sure that you are prepared to fight battles and or defend yourself in those windows around turn 30. And we saw that in this game, you know. Rome showed up at the Assyrian door between turn 25 and 30-ish, ready to do some damage. So you need to be able to defend yourself in each of those windows. That does not mean you need to have like an equal level of power in terms of the sense of like going for your own timing attacks or whatever. But you just need to be in a position where you can repel a potential early rush, mid-game timing, or obviously succeed in a late-game war if it comes to it. And defense is always a little bit easier than offense because you have so much going for you. So, mastering how to defend yourself against seemingly insurmountable odds will go a long way in this tournament, I think. Really looking good for the Romans at this stage, though. We now have 4 axes in the region, 4 slingers in the region, to 2 axes in the region, and 3 slingers in the region, and the battlefield advantages us because it's mostly woods. So I think... What else we got coming down the pipeline here? Chariots, but not fast enough. And did we do the tile swap? No, Fluffy! Learn the cheese, my friend. Learn the ways of the cheese. Always nice to have a tip for Fluffy, though, because he plays this game so amazingly well. But yeah, that's the one thing I would have done differently, brother, is I would have taken this tile, and I would have taken the opinion hit. Look at the colony, look at the politics. This would have made our clerics upset for a little bit, but I wouldn't care, because I think the strategic value of getting chariots in the champ seat would have been way worth it. But yeah, this is a level of cheese and micro that not everybody keys in on all that often. But for me, this type of shit is my bread and butter. I love manipulating the game in quirky ways and trying to get advantage out of it. It is as much a strength of mine as a weakness of mine. Unfortunately, I need to step away for one moment, so I'm going to head back to the Roman turns. We're going to keep the action centered on here. I'm sure that the Romans will take a couple of kills here, so I'm going to zoom in, minimize these side windows, get rid of my tooltips, and give you guys a nice bird's-eye view of the action. I'm going to step away real briefly. I apologize. All right, we are back. Looks like we killed at least one axe, which is nice. We're about to lose another axe, but that's fine. We still have a seemingly nice advantage on our side. The other reason why it's so important to be able to defend around these timings is because just like the same issue Gel ran into at the start of this, you know, Fluffy's making a play here, and not necessarily the wrong idea. You know, he's trying to press his advantage, but if this attack fails, you got to think of it from the sense of all of the orders Fluffy will have wasted in these last 10 turns, you know, 5 to 10 turns. That didn't really do much for him. And since it can be a little bit easier for the player to defend, you still can sometimes have an opportunity. Oh, we're having a central threat position coming towards Ravenna, the champion seat of Rome. Only 2 units, though. However, could create some chaos for the Roman player. Always scary. Could create some flanking opportunities as well. Really hoping to see a chariot soon. Where are our chariot opportunities? We have a chariot coming from Tushan. A chariot coming from Dursharukin. And Nimrod will have a chariot as well at some point. After that rancher. Is the ruler 67? Yeah, she's 67. She's still alive. Still ranger as well. So really trying to maximize the output of this ruler here. But I'm pretty sure Assyria still has a tactician. Yeah. A naturalist, tough, compassionate, proud, dog owner tactician. Medium stats, 28 years old. He's on an axeman right now. He's on this axeman. So the prince is available, and you actually can stun twice in the same turn, by the way, if you abdicate. Not necessarily saying that you need to or that it's always worth it, but it's a fun trick. That's in the list of the stupid tricks that you can do. Assyria could stun with his ruler, who's still alive, abdicate to his prince, and get himself another stun. Which is always fun. Neat little trick that you can do. Does cost civics and legitimacy, but who knows? Maybe sometimes it's worth it. Is it worth it? I don't know. Is it cool? Yes. That's the trend of this podcast, it seems. Oh, it's not a podcast. It's a stream. My bad. Moose does the podcasts. Speaking of a voice for radio, Moose easily has the best radio voice. And it's kind of jarring, to be totally honest. All right, really looking interesting for the Romans. We have backed up and tile bought. Why did we do that? Oh, we're trying to connect the coast. Okay. Risky, but I get it. Okay. Yep. Now we have a fully connected coast, so even look how far this militia can get, looping all the way around. We just need to do one little tile by right here to fully connect this coast to make that the most efficient on orders. The Persian, I mean, in the middle of the battle is a little bit dubious, but I suspect he's doing this to collapse his coast. Whoa. Okay, Gel is going to be acquainted with the fact that you no longer can block off military units with civilians, so this is a rough lesson learned, and we had a player in the Discord community very bothered by this mechanic recently. Personally, I think it's a great change, but also Fluffy could choose to take the political damage here and kill one of these workers for the opinion hit. So this type of tactic doesn't really work anymore. Fluffy stole a kill already. And he's just coming right past the workers. Giving Gel that education. I'm sure we'll get a wait what moment in a second. And that is a dead... Oh, and a crit. And a kill. Okay, so that's 3 kills for the Assyrians and a fresh new axe in the battle. Looking less good for the Romans now. Romans are dropped to much weaker. The might of the Assyrian Empire is flexing towards the Romans. Full speed now. Still have yet to bring chariots into the field. It's going to be 4 turns until that happens. 2 more fresh axes, by the way. You could take the opportunity to get these up to the capital to bring them into the battlefield soon as well. I wouldn't be surprised. Imagine if Fluffy just completely forgot these axes are even here and they're just standing here getting XP. I mean, not the worst thing, I suppose. 2 slingers down south as well. And he's leveling up his scout, his slinger in the woods. He put his slinger in the woods and leveled up his slinger. Very, very harrowing position for Gel at this stage. Played a solid game up until this point. And really the important, again, about defending here is, in addition to... Look, Rome's actually taking a science lead. Fluffy still has the overall greater investment in the tree itself. However, the science rate has now begun to favor Rome. So if Rome was able to repel this attack and get back to what I call an equalized position, where Assyria had to rebuild themselves up or recognize the fact that they could not win this battle, well, then that would give Rome an opportunity to take a science and then strategic lead in terms of military units. But Gel, if you rewatch this, you played a very good game, a very decent game. If this is your first multiplayer game, I think you played a good game. Your only real core mistake was attacking too early. Way too early. Especially against Assyria, of all people. And a tactician as well. But apart from that, if you do lose this match, I think you'll have a much better round 2 against your next opponent. I think a lot of players, especially a lot of players who lost their first games, which I'm just so excited for round 2, because I think a lot of players who lost their first games are going to have much better games in the second round. And I think all the players who won their first games are going to have greater challenges in the second round. So the second round is going to be super exciting for everybody, because I think a lot of the players will... I think the losers going up against... The people who lost, who go up against each other, are going to be in for some very interesting games. And I think the people who won going up against each other are going to create some real interesting situations and entertainment for us as viewers as well. So round 2, like, we're just 1 week into the tournament, guys. Round 1. 30 games, right? We finished 20 already. And I can't emphasize this enough. The full length of this tournament is going to be 150 games. So again, do not burn yourself out on consuming old world content, because there is a lot more to come. And it's going to heat up once we get to the championship bracket, after the Swiss players all advance and qualify for the championship. It will be a single elimination bracket to every player who survived the qualifying rounds. And the competition will get more and more intense towards the finals. So lots and lots of action to come in the coming weeks and months. It's going to be a great time. Great time. And a huge thanks to our players who signed up and are engaged and are looking forward to all the action. 150 games and 100 will be casted by me. Possibly. We don't need to cast every game, but I'm certainly going to make an effort to try and get as many casted. Really murdering some Romans now. Also notice how Fluffy is concentrating on killing units. He's not necessarily prioritizing taking the city. Sometimes going for a city strike can be the right move, but more often than not, the most important thing for you to do is to keep killing units, because if you... Like 90% of the time, I think if you win the battle, you will win the game. Especially if it's like the main battle, like where all of each army is going up against each other. And maybe not that high, maybe more like 80% of the time. But anyway, yeah, killing units is the most important, because it becomes harder and harder to replenish while you're also building units and replenishing. Chariot in 3 turns. Chariot, we're rushing out a chariot in Tur Sharukin. So this is going to come and probably deal a devastating blow. I would not be surprised if we see him attack a worker with the slinger and then begin a route chain with his chariot that's about to pop out. Ooh, and I love the deeper anchor. The majority of his army is now in position, and he actually moved his boat up 1 or 2 fatigue, and created a better anchor where he can loop around this battlefield inside the Roman territory. Very, very excellent and strategic use of a single ship. So this is the great demonstration not only of axes but also steel in general by taking the strategic opportunity of giving yourself a boat. Really coming all together here for Fluffy. Beautiful watch. Yes, and there's a question in chat, and I'll explain it just to clarify for those asking, for those watching after the fact, in case it's not abundantly clear to everybody, and I wouldn't expect it to be for people not participating in the tournament. The way the qualifying rounds work is every player is going to play in each round until one of 2 things happen. That player loses 3 matches, in which case they are eliminated from the tournament. Or that player wins 3 matches, in which case they earn their qualifying spot for the championship bracket, which means come round 3, all of the players who win their first 3 games actually will not play in round 4 and 5 because they will have qualified for the championship bracket, so they get a little bit of a break. And all of the players who lose their first 3 games will be eliminated. And then in round 4 and 5, we will get the final players who have had a more even record of like 2 losses and 2 wins and close out the game. So it looks like Gel is conceding the match here. Very well fought. Really nice, solid. I can't stress this enough for Gel. If you're rewatching this, very solid 50 turns. Really just killed a little bit of momentum there by attacking early. And then, of course, you have to face against master tactician Fluffybunny. So Rome, the question was, is Rome from Jairus? Yes, they don't have any husbandry. All right, looks like we're getting a surrender, and I'm going to see if they want to join post-game chat. Good game to both players. And let me get set up for that chat. Nice. Turned 52. 1 session. Love to see it. And let our players know. Yep. And let's hop down into Hangodens. Hello, hello, Fluffybunny. Congratulations on the win.
Hello, thank you very much. That was a lot of fun.
I made a joke at one point when the chat clocked that you were definitely going to do a steel play, that I felt like you just wanted, since I complained about axes a ton, you just wanted to be like, sit back, watch, this is how you do it. This is how you axe rush. And
yeah.
Very, very well executed. And I also really appreciated the synergy of the free Byreme on steel and the way you utilized it, both to secure the island, but also to invade.
Yeah, that Byreme came in really, really helpful indeed, and still 1 turn away from navigation. So yeah, sped me up a lot.
Yeah.
Hello, Joel. Thanks for the game. Yes. Well played.
Yes, you too. Very well played. That was very nerve-wracking at the end.
So, Jill, is this your first multiplayer game?
Well, I played some multiplayer, mainly with a friend of mine, go up against the AI, but this was my first dual multiplayer game, yes.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think you played a solid game overall. We were talking earlier that that initial assault was probably ill-advised, and that set you back on overall military tempo. But in terms of general development, you actually just were about to start taking a science lead over Fluffy and stuff like that. So I feel like if you were able to defend against this scary assault, you could have maybe had a comeback in the mid game. So I think you played well. I think you're going to have a very strong round 2.
Thanks. I felt I was very low in science for a long while, so I was trying to get a little bit more focus on that. But yeah, that attack was way too cocky for me. I was a bit scared of Fluffy, and I thought maybe I can push my advantage, but yeah, not with a tactician. That's clear.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
Fluffy, how did... Go ahead. Go ahead.
I do love tactician leaders. They are very hard to play against, and I kind of stayed deliberately weak and just focused on development at the start. Blobbed out a little bit faster because you can defend with not very much with a tactician in a city.
Yeah, I see that now. That's one of the things against the AI. You rarely encounter it this way. So that was very new for me, and yeah, that's a good thing to learn.
Well, hopefully you had fun and you're looking forward to the next match. And I have to admit, Fluffy, I was so like enamored with all of the tiny little micro decisions that you were making that I might have focused a little bit more on being in awe of Fluffy's playstyle than critiquing Gel and offering notes. But I definitely did offer some notes, so hopefully you'll learn a thing or two if you happen to have time to go back and rewatch the cast.
Yeah,
But
definitely do that.
yeah, but you guys both played a really good game. I think, Gel, you did very great for your first time. I like that you also stayed up in military. Like, you weren't too far. Like, if we look at the military graph, really, until this, turn 48-ish spike where Fluffy was really ready to go, if you had never launched that initial assault, you would have been mostly neck and neck in power with Fluffy for most of the game, which would have made it easier to defend now when he was ready to make a move. So, yeah. Sometimes those early aggressive plays, and I'm a very early aggressive, I go for early plays all the time, but it's kind of one of those things where if you mess that up, that decision alone can basically cost you the whole game. It's a very risky play to attack early.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was really was considering it for a few turns because of a fluff. I was a bit nervous because I saw the barracks going up. I thought, oh, I have to do something about that. Just strike early when he doesn't expect it. But yeah, no, it didn't work out.
Yeah. And it's extra shitty to go up against Assyria because on the last turn of that fight, he got 3 different crits. And then the fight was over and he'd go back to clearing like barbarians or tribal stuff. He had a raid in the north there. And he got another 3 crits with different units. So, like, if that was an actual prolonged battle between units, that would have been 6 crits inside of 2 turns, which is so hard to predict with Assyria. So it's almost like you need to bring more units if you're going up against Assyria because you're absolutely going to have stuff die.
And using Assyria, Fluffy, was that something you did because I chose Rome, or was it just something you had in mind already?
I didn't particularly have it in mind now. When looking at the start, I didn't really anything leap out to me, so I wasn't sure who I was going to pick. But yeah, going for Rome, I thought, well, I need someone who can compete in early military, and I do quite like Assyria for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, at what point did you realize you accidentally bulldozed the iron, Fluffy? That was awesome.
When the barracks completed, yeah. No, I did. Was everyone shouting at me at the time? Did you catch that?
No, I didn't even catch it until you said it. I completely missed it. And then we did all have a good laugh about it. And it was, I went on a whole little thing about how it's nice to even notice that, all of us, even the more experienced players, we all make mistakes, we all make misclicks and misplays and stuff like that. So it was a highlight just on account of the fact that, like, even though, Fluffy had a reputation for playing so good, it was only like 10 or 15 turns into the game, and you already made like a really silly mistake. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was crazy.
Fun. All right, thank you guys both for playing, and thanks for letting us watch. What's that?
Yes. Thanks for you casting.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Yeah, cheers, Simon. Definitely appreciated.
Right.
You're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, thank you so much. And you guys both played a very good game, and Assyria takes the win, and I think you guys will both have an excellent round 2. So, yeah, I'm going to close the stream here and let you guys take off. Thanks again for letting us watch.
Yes, thank you for streaming, and see you soon.
Cheers. Thanks for the game.
Cheers.
All right, everybody, that's the game. Fluffybunny's Assyria versus Gel's Rome. Again, I can't emphasize enough. Gel played a really solid game. He only just made a major tactical blunder, which I know that sounds like a big deal. Like, oh, he only just made a major tactical blunder. But it's his first multiplayer game. He's up against an experienced opponent. The 4X genre is a genre where it's hard to, just go play practice games because these games can take 2, 3, 4, 6 hours to complete. So as far as the first time jumping into the game, he did a really, really good job. His science, his economy is pretty solid for this state in the game. I do think he actually had a window of opportunity to probably repel this attack with just a little bit stronger tactics. But of course, that is always a tall order against Fluffy. Look at Fluffy's perfect triangular formation on this axis. It's really nice. It makes it so hard to secure kills because it's all about making sure your units can hit this stuff, right? So when you do fun configurations like this, the tactical value of certain positioning is just insane in this game, and I love it so much. So strong tactics from Fluffy, and both players will be going to round 2, hopefully with high morale and ready to play more games. Any other stats I want to check out? Military score, yeah, big wallop. See, we took a few kills from the Syrians. Orders was going to be an issue. If you have more orders, you can win fights too, even if your army's a little bit weaker. But yeah, Rome actually was going to take a little bit of a science lead going into the mid game. All right, so I'm going to close out the stream here. Thank you for watching live and keeping me company. Great to chat with everybody. If you've been watching after the fact, hope you've been enjoying all the content on YouTube. Much, much more to come. Over 150 games to play, and we're only on like the 24th game. So I hope you've been enjoying all the content. I'm Scientific. This has been the Old World Community Tournament, and I will see you all on the next one. Take care.